Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 165 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. Hope you guys are having a great Tuesday. Hope you're having a great start to your week. Big game came out today.
Yep.
Maybe the biggest game of the month. It'll probably be the best-selling game of the month.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I would guess Sony would want us to think Days Gone's the biggest game of the month.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But I don't think that's true.
It's exclusive, so
Yeah.
I think Mortal Kombat will ultimately end up selling more. It should sell more. We're going to definitely talk about that on the show. Matt and I have both been playing it. I've actually finished it. Well, if you can ever finish a fighting game. So we'll talk about that towards the end of the show. We got a couple other games. I think what might be the first sleeper hit of 2019 to talk about today. And I'm pleasantly surprised that I'm even saying that about the game. A couple notes before we get started. First of all, some of you guys have still not checked your inboxes on Patreon. We've got probably about 75% response so far for our sticker shipping. So there's a bunch of you guys who still have not replied. Check your inboxes, your DM inbox on Patreon. We're asking for your address so we can send you out stickers. And this is just for folks who pledge at $15 or more per month. Been getting great feedback from the people who have received them so far. Most people have been sticking them on their consoles so far, which I found interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Makes sense, absolutely. If anybody sticks it on their car, I'll love you long time, because that's great marketing for us. If you're out there on the highways, people see our stickers, they're like, what's that? And they're bored in traffic, maybe they figure out, hey, this is a cool video game site. So anyway, do whatever the hell you want with them, but please just reply on Patreon. It's been a crazy process. Shipping all these out by hand has taken forever, but I'm caught up. So if you've sent me your mailing address, your stickers are on the way, or maybe got there by now. So thanks to everybody who pledges at that tier. I appreciate it very much, and I hope you guys like the stickers that we're sending out. And folks on YouTube, you're watching the show for free. Maybe you're watching an ad, maybe you're not. You're probably not. You're probably using ad blocker. But the best thing that you can do for us is help us out with Twitch Prime. The instructions to do that are down below. The short of it is you can give us a free $2.50 per month for doing nothing. It costs you nothing. It takes a minute of your time. We would really, really appreciate it. It is absolutely making a difference for us. So if you're doing it, thank you very much. And with that, let's get on with the show. We're going to kick things off with that game that I was teasing earlier. Something that I think might be a sleeper hit for 2019. And actually, the sales came out today, and it looks like I'm not alone in that. The game we're going to talk about is World War Z. They announced today the game has sold 1 million copies in its first week. And I'm really, really surprised by that.
It's impressive for something I didn't even know was coming out until the day it came out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they did not do a great job marketing this game. They only put out 3 or 4 trailers. It was developed by Saber Interactive. It's not coming from a gigantic publisher, and some could argue that even this IP might be dead in the water at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely coming off the back of a not tremendously great film. I mean, they are doing another one, but...
They are doing another one?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's paying attention to that, but...
Yeah, it's a weird window, because the movie came out, what, like 4 years ago?
Several years ago, yeah.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. And I remember when I first saw the trailers for this, and this is what you're seeing right now is trailers, and we do have raw gameplay B-roll we're going to show you here in a bit. But when I first saw these trailers, I thought this was all bullcrap. I was like, there's no way that this game, by this small developer, is going to have that many zombies in it. That was really the thing that set World War Z apart. Mm-hmm. The movie was the number of zombies and the way they were like ran in herds, and that kind of changed the whole dynamic of the zombie movie.
Although it was completely inaccurate to the book.
Right.
So
yeah, I've heard that. I've never read the book.
The book's pretty good.
Is it?
It has one problem where it intentionally makes the military complete morons for the sake of the plot requiring the military to fail to hold back zombies.
Yeah.
But it's one of the best outbreak build-ups in any zombie story I think I've ever seen, and it's done like a retrospective interview book. You know, it's a series of interviews with people who are important. It's taking place after the war is over. And it's like interviews with people who were key figures in everything. And it's actually really well done. Written by Mel Brooks' son.
Oh, wow.
Max Brooks. And in the end, the movie resembles it in no way whatsoever. Like the zombies in the book are the slow kind.
Oh, really?
It's the Walking Dead style stuff.
Interesting.
It's more of a slow terror burn kind of thing, and it gets into like a lot of politics and like, you know, like how it starts to spread, because it starts to spread in an undeveloped part of the world, and by the time anybody figures out what's going on, it starts in China, and China's government won't admit that there's a problem, and by the time they do, you've got like millions of zombies, and there's nothing anyway. So it's, and it kind of gets into all that stuff and how like there's still zombies underwater, and like, you know, even years after the war, people like they could, you know, one could just come walking up a beach, and,
and bite one person and it starts all over again.
There's all this stuff up in like the tundra and stuff where they're frozen, and like people like patrol the tundra in the spring and shoot them as they thaw out and stuff. Like there's some really cool stuff in it, and it would have been a pretty cool like low budget, like, you know, if you did it like a Ken Burns drama or like an interview document, like a talking head documentary, but then Brad Pitt got the rights and it turned into
he owns the rights.
Yeah, his production company is the one that did it.
That explains why he's in the film as well.
Yes. Yeah. So instead it became a nonsensical like Independence Day style blockbuster.
Well, I'll say this about the video game: the story elements in the video game are worse than the film. So
that's impressive.
So you have the book, the film, the video game. There isn't really any storytelling in the game. For those of you who don't know, World War Z is a Left 4 Dead clone, meaning...
Yeah, I kind of assumed it was multiplayer only, almost.
It is multiplayer only, yeah. So it's up to 4 players cooperatively, online. You can play it offline, but I could not see any fun in doing that, to be perfectly honest with you. The fun of it is teaming up and helping each other get through it. And obviously you can revive characters who are downed. There are certain zombies in the game that if you don't have somebody help you, you can't survive once they get a hold of you. So like the tanks in this game, they'll pick you up and they'll just start slamming you down on the ground, and they'll keep doing that until you die unless somebody comes over and kills the heavy. So I don't know how... I haven't... Yeah. Crazy bug there that I saw almost as soon as I started playing the game. I thought about taking it out of the B-roll, but I was like, no, I think it's indicative of the game a little bit. I think it's important to leave it in there. But it's a 4-player cooperative third-person shooter, and you're just taking on literally herds of zombies. They're not the slow-moving kind. They run. Some of the herds that I've seen, I know the trailers say hundreds. I would not be surprised if a couple of the herds that I saw were over like 1,000 or 2 zombies. And the cool part about it is, and you'll see it in the B-roll here as it goes on, is you can spot the herds coming from like far away. Like you'll see them literally like a half mile away back in the geometry of the environments coming. And then you can kind of start planning. And a big part of the game is planning. So you'll get to sections of the game. A lot of it is just fighting corridor to corridor, and then big herds of zombies will blow in, and you guys all set up and try to take them down. But then there's other parts where it kind of stops. And a timer will say, okay, 1 minute until the herd comes. Prepare to defend yourself. And what you'll do is you'll search the environment and you'll find defensive items located around the environment. So you can find turrets, you can find these things that you lay on the ground that electrifies the ground. And so there are certain segments in the game where you kind of set up camp and you just defend that spot, kind of like a horde mode. But you have these armaments that you can use. You can strategically place them. You can't place them wherever you want, though. So that where you place the turrets is predetermined, where you place the electric floor is predetermined, but there's more slots than there are actual items. So you can be strategic in which positions you actually choose to put those objects in. So there's a little bit of strategy to it. But for the most part, it's really just posting up and just mowing down zombies. And the zombies are really fast, and it's scary. Like when you first see like 1,000 zombies running full bore at you, you're like, oh my gosh, how can we survive this? And like you can see right here, them just coming off over the bridge there. Like this happens over and over in this game, and it's a unique feeling that I honestly have not felt in a game before. And you see them coming, and you're like, there's no way we can wipe this out. But then you'll have somebody posted up on a turret, and you can literally just mow down hundreds of them like per second with a big turret. It feels so rewarding. And then a lot of times, like the zombies, they don't come after you. They go after objectives. So like here, they like kind of run past me because they're all going to a gate. You can see there's the gate there. So sometimes you're trying to defend objects instead of yourself, and you're like, wait a minute, why are these zombies running past me? It's because they're running to an objective to try to take an objective, and it's your job to take them out before the fence gets destroyed. There's another, in this mission we're about to watch here, you basically defend a bus as the bus travels through the city. and you have to defend the bus. The zombies don't really come after you that much. They go after the bus and try to attack the bus. And so there's like a little bit of different strategies involved there. There are 4 different missions in the game. And let's see, there's Japan, there's Israel. What are the other 2? Can't remember.
I would guess there'd be a China. Is there China level in there?
I don't think so.
Germany?
No. We could go on and on trying to guess them, but...
Well, I'm trying to think of like key locations in the movie or the book. Yonkers?
No, Yonkers,
No?
New York.
Battle of Yonkers is the big turning point in the book.
Oh, it is.
When the military does stupid stuff and gets overrun, and
Yeah.
that's when they lose the east side of the country.
Yeah, Yonkers is
For
not in
reasons
here.
that no military outfit would ever. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's,
So there's 4 missions in the game. Originally there was supposed to be 3, and then Japan was supposed to be its first DLC drop. But a couple months ago they changed their minds. Like, you know what? We're just going to put Japan in with the base game. And there's not a lot of game here yet. I think that's probably my biggest criticism. You can make it through, if you're playing with good players, you can make it through each mission in a little less than an hour, something like that. Each mission has like 4 or 5 different sections. And you can choose to start from any point as well within each mission. So you don't have, when you go to play it again, you don't have to start from the first mission and then play it all the way through. If you say you were on the 3rd part of that mission and you had to leave or the connection dropped or whatever, when you go back to play it again, you can start from that checkpoint. Alternatively, when you're matchmaking with people, you sometimes you'll get matchmaked and you'll just be right in the thick of it. Like you literally just spawn and there's like 500 enemies like running around. It's an intense game. It's an exciting game. It's not a great looking game, but I think when I've been playing this, one thing I've been doing is saying, okay, is this better or worse than Left 4 Dead in pretty much every way? And visually, it's a step way farther than what you got with for Left 4 Dead, obviously.
It's definitely a step up from the 10-year-old game.
Yeah, right. So Left 4 Dead is like 10 years old, so you would expect it to look better, and it does look a lot better. That said, it's not going to win any Best Graphics Awards at the end of the year. Now, when you have that many zombies, it makes sense that they would have to be pretty simply modeled, and they are. And the gore is... There's a lot of blood. There's not a lot of like dismemberment and things like that. So after a battle's over, you're not seeing like heads and arms and legs laying everywhere. Lots of dead zombies. But you're not seeing their body parts, and I think that's one way that they keep the poly count down to make sure that it runs. And I will say this, like, I did not notice any crazy frame rate dips. It's not running at 60, but it doesn't dip down. And you would think a game like this from a developer of that size, when you just throw like a couple thousand zombies on screen, you would think, I would expect there to be at least a little bit of a chug, but no. I mean, it pretty much stays locked at 30 the entire time. There's a comedic angle to this game, too, and it's not intentional. They don't try to be funny. The zombie physics in this game are really bizarre. So sometimes you shoot a guy in the leg, and he'll just fly like 10 feet up into the air, like spiraling. If they're running at you and you shoot them, it's pretty comical to watch how they collapse to the ground, and they'll fall on top of each other. And the physics are built in so that they actually play off of each other. The bodies play off of each other. But ultimately, I think, you know, what people have to decide if they want to buy this. And it's $40. It's not a full price game, so it is a budget game. And they have announced that there's going to be a ton of DLC coming. And they have to, because right now, I think you could literally finish the entire game in probably 2 or 3 hours if you just played it. Now, they want you to play this over and over again. Because it's all about loot and guns. And it's not, when I say it's all about loot, it's not like you're constantly loot. You don't loot any enemies. And you're not finding it's not like the Division 2 where there's just stuff everywhere that you have to loot constantly to get stuff out of. There are things that you find, there are weapons that you find that you can add to your arsenal for that mission. But you can't start a mission with the weapons that you find. You have to unlock the weapons that you can use to start missions using the points that you earn when you complete missions. And they'll have like an SMG, and then they'll have like 4 or 5 different versions of that SMG, and each one adds like an extra attachment. So the second one has like a muzzle brake that helps with the stability. The next one has a clip that's bigger, so you can fire more shots before you have to reload, et cetera, et cetera. And then they do that for each class. And then there's also a skill tree that you open up using those same points. You have to make a decision whether you use your points for improving your weapons or if you want to use it to basically add buffs to your character. And the skill tree is pretty big, and there's one for each class, and I think there's like 8 classes. There's a lot. And each class has its own tree of completely unique buffs that you can apply to your character. Character customization is minimal and kind of embarrassing. It's not it's not robust. It's kind of like a fighting game. All the characters are prefab. You can't really create your own. And
not like the fighting game we're talking about today.
Nope, definitely not. And it'll be interesting to see how they handle DLC for this because it is a budget game. So I would suspect that the DLC is not going to be free, particularly considering that they gave you what was supposed to be the first DLC episode for free in the base game. So I doubt that they're going to give any more away for free. And I could see people getting into this game and, begging for that new content because what they do is they encourage you to keep playing the same missions over and over, but there are literally like 10 difficulty settings. And I played it on the first difficulty setting, and I died a lot. I mean, when you have that many zombies around, you're going to die. Sometimes you just get piled on, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I think what they want people to do is just to keep playing it over and over again, the same missions, and then bumping up the difficulty settings so that when you get new weapons, they're not just completely wiping people out. And obviously you get more XP, and then the stuff gets more expensive. It all feeds into the same XP treadmill that we're used to with these games. The big differences between this and Left 4 Dead is there are no safe houses. So you remember in Left 4 Dead, there's these places where you go where you can take a breather and you kind of work on your loadout and things like that. In this game, there aren't separate safe houses, but the way it's designed, after you finish a skirmish, there's always a big pile of ammo and weapon crates sitting there, and you can take as long as you want. It's not like zombies just randomly run out. It's all kind of set up beforehand so that you know whenever the horde's going to get triggered and they're going to start coming at you. So that's the biggest change. There's no downtime in this game at all as far as okay, we finished that, now let's hang out in the safe house and work on our strategy or anything like that. It's just always on. You're always playing the game. The game is very generous with ammo. You never have to worry about running out of ammo. After every skirmish, like I said, there's plenty of crates to refill that stuff, or to refill your grenades. And I think probably the funnest part about this game is using your weapons on these hordes and seeing what they'll do. Like throwing a grenade in this game is one of the most satisfying things I've done in video games in a long time. Because you'll get to sections where there's literally 300 of them trying to climb up a wall. You just toss your grenade into that pile and you just watch the pile go boom. Again, it's not the most technologically advanced game, but it's just fun. And, there's certain games that kind of transcend a lot of the issues that we have with other games because there's something else about them that sets them apart. And I've had a blast playing this game. I had the lowest expectations for this game. There's the heavy I was telling you about. You cannot get out of that guy's grasp unless one of your partners helps you and takes that heavy out.
Which they are not.
They are not. Yeah, I think I actually die here. And like I said, you die in this game a good bit. So, but yeah, it's basically Left 4 Dead in 2019. Don't expect a lot of technical panache or garnish or flash. But it plays well, it runs well, all the tools are there that you need. The content, lacking a little bit, but I've had a blast with it. I really was, I almost didn't even play this, to be honest with you. They sent me the review code, and I was like, maybe I'll get around to it at some point. Then I looked at the next 3 or 4 weeks, and I was like, oh, I'm playing World War Z. I'm going to have to play World War Z. And it was a pleasant surprise. Again, $40, it's on every platform. Except for Switch. I'm not sure if it's on Switch, actually.
I don't know.
But it's a budget title. It's low risk. It's a lot of fun. Obviously, it's interesting that this came out now because in a week's time, we have Days Gone.
Not even a week.
I mean, it's
It's 3 days.
Is it? Oh, yeah.
Friday.
It's the 26th. You're right. So, we're going to have a zombie off here.
I didn't even think of that Days Gone is competing for pop culture mindshare with Avengers Endgame and the big battle episode of Game of Thrones this weekend.
Yep.
Good luck, boys.
And you have this budget title that's kind of doing the same thing, although it's not.
No, I mean, Days Gone is more interesting to me, which is not a thing I think I've ever said before.
You haven't.
In the sense
You've not been a fan of Days Gone.
In the sense that it's a single player
right.
experience as opposed to a co-op thing. Like I might take a look at the World War Z game if time goes by and the DLC is robust and it gets cheap real quick or something like that. But I played Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2 a lot, and I did too.
We used to play it at G4.
Yeah,
after work we'd all get together and play.
I have not felt the need to do that again.
You know what? I think it took 10 years.
Yeah,
I think it really did. I think I was finally ready to play something like this. But I would say, too, that this design has been cloned a bunch of times. Like, there's games like Vermintide out there that are doing the same thing, but in a different setting. Yeah, this is just the same thing, basically.
Yeah. A little bit of Raiders of the Broken Planet had that.
Yeah, it did.
Or whatever they call it now, because I can't remember the new name.
Yeah, they should have left the name the way it was.
Worst rebranding in the history of rebranding things.
Yeah, but I was pleasantly surprised by this game. I had a ton of fun with it. $40, pretty cheap. It'll be interesting to see how the zombies work in Days Gone now, because they've kind of gotten away from the whole, hey, look at how many zombies we have on screen thing, which is what they debuted the game with, really. But like all the stuff that they put out for the last couple months, they haven't really focused on that at all. So I don't know if they've dialed it back. I know there was lots of stories about the game not running well when they had all those zombies.
There's apparently 40 zombie herds roaming the map.
At all times?
Yeah, I think if you eliminate one, they're gone.
For good.
For good. But what I read, and I think the Game Informer thing was there's like 40 of the herds wandering around, and you kind of got to work around them or deal with them.
I think people are going to be shocked by Days Gone. Because...
In a bad way? Or?
I think in a good way. Yeah. I can't say anything. But... Yeah.
I think it's got to sell first. I've been seeing a fair amount of ads on like sporting event broadcasts and stuff, so they're doing their usual thing. I mean, but I don't know anyone who my usual suspects of like more casual non-game industry following people, not a single one of them has asked me about that game, which is unusual.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to sell well or whatever. I think people are going to be surprised by
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for the good. For the good. I'm just going to say this. Clear your calendar. Clear your freaking calendar.
You're talking about like Assassin's Creed Odyssey level stuff here? Wow.
Yep.
Big game.
Yep. I don't think anybody expected this game to be what it is. I'll put it to you that way.
After as long as it's taken.
It should be.
Kind of, yeah.
It should be. But after all the problems they've had like along the way, I think a lot of people have just kind of written it off. And Friday, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised. So there you go. That's World War Z. I would absolutely recommend it at $40. Even though there's only 4 missions there now, I got $40 of fun out of that game already. Guaranteed. And I didn't really play anything. I played the Japan level twice. And then I went back and would play sections of the other ones, but I only played through everything like one time through. And I felt like I got my money's worth out of that. I had a lot of fun with it. Even playing with randoms, it was fun. People were great to each other and helping each other out and getting each other's backs. And yeah, I've had a really good time with it. So I give thumbs up for World War Z. Never thought I'd ever be saying that. That said, I would wait for next week's show if you're wondering, should I buy World War Z or Days Gone? Yeah. So if you're on the fence on those games, maybe wait another 7 days. I'll say that. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a game that was leaked this week. We love leaks here on GameFace.
A game that was leaked and a game I've been calling for like 2 years.
You have. You absolutely have. It was leaked this week that Warner Brothers is working on a Suicide Squad game. And not only that, that's not the big surprise to me. The big surprise to me is that it's a game as a service.
Not a surprise to me.
I mean, I guess everything's going to be that now.
I mean, I've been saying that's what they've been working on for like 2 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Suicide Squad game as a service, you can sell all kinds of weird gear and modification things. You can add new characters however you want, because basically you can use either an endless supply of B and C list villains that could be part of the Suicide Squad. You could have people design their own villain, like you did in the Lego DC supervillains game. It's an obvious move.
And if you remember, Matt has been calling this for literally like 2 years, because every time we've discussed what is Rocksteady doing next, you have brought this up.
Yep, because
rewind the tape, people. Seriously, Matt has been on this for like 2 years.
They've teased Suicide Squad twice in 2 different games, And at the time that they would have started development, even after Montreal canceled their initial foray into that, because they were the ones who were originally supposed to make it. I think they are still working on it, but I think it's multiple. I think it's a multi-team big thing.
Everything is now. I mean, is there any game anymore that's just developed by one studio?
Not from the major publishers.
Yeah, it just doesn't work that way anymore.
That's why the Assassin's Creed stuff leaks all the time, because there's 1,000 people working on it.
Yeah.
But they've teased a Suicide Squad game twice, both at the end of Arkham Origins and at the end of Blackgate. And the movie was the only successful DC movie at the time, even moderately successful at the time, in terms of penetrating into like pop culture and like mind share. Like that. You've seen Harley Quinns at Halloween every year since Suicide Squad came out. Suicide Squad was terrible and it didn't make tons of money, but it had an impact.
People like the characters.
Yeah, that's what matters.
Yeah.
And so doing that made a lot of sense, especially if they really didn't want to make another Batman game. And we knew they weren't making a Superman game, regardless of what people, had their fantasies about it, I guess. But like even Rocksteady's own people were like, yeah, we don't want to do a Superman game. Like no one wants to do a Superman game. It's too weird.
It is weird. Yeah, when you have someone that can't be destroyed, how do you make it compelling?
I mean, you can make it compelling. Like you basically make
it's always the cheap fallback of kryptonite.
It's a giant escort mission.
Yeah.
Basically, like your job is to make sure that other things don't get damaged so much. But no, that's not fun.
It's not fun. They've tried, and I've never enjoyed a Superman game. I mean, they really set the precedent with Superman 64.
So Superman Returns game was okay, but it was that same thing. The life bar was Metropolis.
Yeah.
Like if too much of Metropolis got damaged, that's how you lost.
Right.
And it was fine. It was it's enjoyable-ish, but like on the level of something like Arkham, where like like Arkham Asylum or Arkham City, where like you're like, wow, this is Batman. Like I'm playing a Batman game. This is great. Like Superman, that'd be a much harder thing. I mean, I think you could probably do it, but and Suicide Squad also made sense because the other rumor that kept flying around that people I think preferred was that it was going to be Justice League as a game as a service sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make any sense because the Justice League's power sets are too varied, which means you have to figure out. Say you're making like a raid, because like one of the things that was leaked in this is there's a Ra's al Ghul raid, which is a ridiculous sentence, but but there's like. So let's say.
I mean, they said this is like Destiny.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the game that they compared it to.
Exactly what I thought it would be, really. But it's like.
How do you see this falling into Destiny's?
So imagine you're doing like a Justice League one. So now you've made the Ra's al Ghul raid, but you have to make it completable by someone using Superman's powers or Batman's powers.
Right.
How does that even?
I mean, the whole thing seems so dicey. You're right. You almost need these like. Suicide Squad's kind of perfect for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you're using like fairly low level powers or just like really good like gadget stuff.
Yeah.
Or just like melee. Like Killer Croc is a moderately strong, punchy guy. Harley Quinn has her bat and her mallet or whatever. Captain Boomerang. God, DC has terrible villains. Captain Boomerang.
It really does.
Has boomerangs.
Because of course he does.
Mirror,
and kangaroos.
Mirror Master has mirrors.
Of course he does. They're really creative over there. Let me tell you. But so look, watching Destiny footage right now and trying to say, okay, a Suicide Squad with this design. Mm-hmm. I mean, could it be the first game as a service that's like urban?
Yeah, well, the first thing they said, the first thing they're going to announce, I guess, at E3, because it was June 4th, I think, was the reveal that was on that document that leaked.
Right.
Is Gotham, like the first area they're going to show is Gotham City, which makes a lot of sense as well, but which is also why Ra's al Ghul is, because I think it'll be in the Arkham universe, which the Ra's al Ghul thing makes sense because Ra's has his League of Assassins base underneath the Arkham City area and all that stuff. It makes sense because you want people to think of Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to offset the fact that you're making a Suicide frickin' Squad game by the fact that look, it's Gotham and it's Batman. It looks like Arkham City, and it's like look at the thing it's that thing you like. It's that thing you like.
Is everyone going to have a gun though? Because that's not really their thing.
No, I think they'll have an appropriate ability based on whatever they have, and like, you can come up with a projectile attack for just about any of those characters, probably, except maybe Killer Croc. I mean, I guess he could like pick things up and throw them.
I mean, is he going to be like a melee character?
Yeah, in theory. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly
He'll
like
be
Destiny.
a heavy, obviously.
I think they're talking, in terms of Destiny, I think they're just talking about structure.
Oh, okay. as far as like how it's going to
Not
roll
that
out.
not that it's a first-person shooter, but that like, you're going to have like an open world with mingle player stuff. You're going to be able to go into like specific sort of quote unquote dungeons where you play with your specific group or solo, and there'll be a story that you can follow through it, but you kind of weaves you in and out of the mingle player section, and there'll be raids. Obviously, there's a Ra's al Ghul raid. They're just structurally, it'll be like a Destiny game.
The weird part about it, though, is that in most games as a service, you create your own character.
Well, I'm curious, because one of the things I think you've seen Warner Brothers really delve into, both in Injustice and now with Mortal Kombat, is taking these established characters but letting you modify their appearance to a tremendous degree. And even in Injustice 2, you saw that when you're just fighting, because when you're fighting like in the AI stuff or the multiverse section or whatever, they'd randomize the outfits and trinkets and stuff on the enemies you're fighting, and two Harley Quinns or two Batmen would look completely different. They did a pretty good job of that. So I think if they're doing that, if like the kind of the visual aesthetics are sort of the thing that if you're picking specific established DC characters, but you can modify their appearance like to that degree, that will be kind of enough for that. The other thing they could do, and this is how they did it in DC Universe Online and how they did it in DC Supervillains the Lego game, is you just make your own character and pick from archetypes. And so if you want to basically design your own sort of permutation of Harley Quinn or whatever, you can, but you can also design something completely different. So they might go that route. I don't know.
See, I wouldn't say it's completely a square peg in a round hole, but it's interesting to think about how they're going to squeeze that IP into something like this and still make it feel like it is that IP.
Well, the thing about Suicide Squad is it can be anyone. It can be
it's not like a hard line.
No,
Suicide
as far as Squad over the years has been it's like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's been a whole bunch of different rosters. It can be anyone who's a villain, basically, who you can just say they got caught or they got their collar stuck on or whatever. You can fudge it real easy.
How do you feel about playing as the bad guy?
I don't care.
You don't care? It doesn't happen very often in games.
No, I mean I don't. Here's the thing: I don't care in the sense that I don't care about DC supervillains. So I don't. There's like 5 I'm interested in, and they're all Batman.
Yeah.
And it'd be more interesting to me like the DC's. I didn't play Lego DC supervillains, but the idea of the depth of customization and you unlock this power, you want a beam power. Okay, well, what color do you want the beam? What kind of effect do you want on the beam? Where should the beam come out of on your character? Come out of your head, come out of your eyes, come out of your hands, come out of your chest. You can customize it really to a great degree. And I didn't play it, and I don't really care about that game, but I do appreciate that they did that. If they do something similar on this kind of game, that's an interesting way to go about it.
I honestly don't know if they'll let you play as the characters. I think that the characters might just be the NPCs that you have to interact with and get missions from.
That's entirely possible.
And you're like the new young recruit to Suicide Squad.
That is how they've done it for DC with the MMO.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly how they did it. You picked an archetype of a particular superhero or supervillain, but you were not that villain. You were working under them as a protege.
Yeah.
And it's basically how they did it for DC supervillains for the Lego game was, you're a new supervillain and kind of working with these characters. That seems, for whatever reason, that seems to be DC's preferred motive.
Honestly,
especially when you get into
more sense.
Especially when you get into multiplayer.
Yeah.
Where even in that what was that terrible multiplayer Batman Gotham City Rejects or Gotham City.
Oh, I forgot about that game. I completely forgot about it.
Remember that? Was that the name of it? Rejects or something like that?
Gotham City. Oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Someone in chat.
Someone in chat. I think Justin Horman says Imposters. Gotham City Imposters.
Yeah, that's it. That's right.
So yeah, I think that's it's certainly possible, or it could be. I think they've got DC seems to be now comfortable enough with NetherRealm modifying their characters tremendously visually that they could possibly just let you do that too. So we'll see. Do I think it really matters? Not really. I don't know if Suicide Squad has that kind of cachet. But we'll see how it goes.
Do you think, though, because it is based on an IP that people recognize, that it may have a chance to become really successful? Because all these games as a service are these worlds that the developers create. It's if you can provide a little bit of familiarity, maybe it can snare in some of the more casual folks.
Maybe, but I just don't think Suicide Squad has that appeal. Harley Quinn does, but nothing else does in that property, really. I guess they better just hope that James Gunn's semi reboot / sequel turns out real well. The Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Which is the dumbest title for a sequel I've ever.
At least they came to their senses and he's working on that stuff again.
Yeah, well, no, that wasn't them.
Well, I know. Obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy, but I'm saying he's
Yeah.
working. Like, he could have been blackballed from the industry.
No, he couldn't. Nobody cared. Like that.
I mean, we didn't care. It seemed like some people did.
No, Disney's executive wing just freaked out and acted too soon and got duped by a bunch of Nazi dumb fucks, and that was the end of it.
Yeah.
Like, that was it. I mean, that was it. They were duped. They were duped by like a bunch of right wingers who were upset that James Gunn has political opinions on Twitter.
Right.
And that's why later
And
on
they
they're
dug
like,
up
oh,
those
yeah.
old tweets that he already apologized for.
Oh yeah. But also like. So the end, and then he went and got this job for DC, and then they brought him back for
like
Guardians.
the next day, right?
Yeah. So like the end result was now he's got 2 movies.
Now his career just like leveled up.
Yeah, he's
Thanks,
gonna
Disney.
be the first director to do
both,
play
right?
both sides basically.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting, and I'm sure he has ideas on what to do with Suicide Squad that are going to be better than David Ayers, because David Ayers is not good at things, especially when you let him rewrite the last draft of the script, which they did for Suicide Squad and Bright, if you remember Bright.
Yeah. If they're debuting this at E3, though, I doubt anything that James Gunn is doing on that film is going to make it into the game. Maybe his DLC stuff.
Well, I mean, James Gunn's they're going to start shooting it this fall, so it's certainly
Script's already done.
Certainly possible as like a first DLC round sort of thing.
Yeah.
I would guess the first launch, whatever, assuming it launches this year, the launch I would guess would be sort of a mix of the movie and sort of classic comic Suicide Squad stuff.
Yeah.
And then you'd sort of like add in the James Gunn version as you move forward, which does have some continuity to it. I mean,
that's what's kind of
I mean,
great
Harley
about
Quinn's
games as a
still,
service.
Harley
honestly.
Quinn's still Margot Robbie, and Jai Courtney I think is coming back, or however you pronounce his name. Although they are recasting Will Smith because Will Smith doesn't want to do it anymore.
Boo-hoo.
No great loss.
Big loss there.
I think they got Idris Elba.
Oh, really?
I think he's taking over as Deadshot, if I'm not mistaken.
That is one cool thing about games as a service, though, and again, this is a specific case because it's based on an existing IP, is that conceivably it can live on long enough that it can incorporate all the stuff that DC is doing into the game in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I'm curious what it'll look like aesthetically, because like if they're going full for that crazy neon sort of like street art like style the first movie had, or if they're going to kind of make it more Arkham-y, if it's going to be like an Arkham universe version of Suicide Squad, because that is but what they've teased.
That makes more sense, I think.
So we'll see. I mean, I admit I'm not actually that interested in playing it, but I am interested in seeing what it exactly is, and also
too. How are they gonna do it?
people are going to react to it, because I think people who've been waiting for Rocksteady or the new Arkham game have been waiting for almost anything except this.
Yeah.
And like every time I bring it up, people have said like, "You're just being pessimistic. You're just trying to be like doom and gloom about." I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure this is
right.
exactly what they're doing.
It could set a precedent too, because look, this may be the first game as a service based on an existing IP. It's definitely not going to be the last. This is going to be the guinea pig that people are going to look at and be like, okay, how do you handle something like this when you have this sort of Bible that exists of canon? How do you dance around that to make a game that's still compelling that people want to play?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could take place, I guess, in the aftermath of Arkham Knight, where like it seemed to kind of change up the status quo a fair amount. I mean, even though Arkham Knight's probably my pick for the most disappointing thing of this entire generation.
Really?
Like, I really didn't like that game, and I actually replayed it recently, like last month or so, because there was nothing else to do, and I'm like, I've got this on the Xbox One X. It looks decent now. I'll play it. And like, it's still dumb. It's still terrible. Like, it's just like, I can't believe they spent that much time putting me in that stupid tank. And then like the big showdown with Deathstroke is in another tank. Like, oh my God, what are you doing? All you had to do was make Arkham City, but with a car. And ugh.
I agree that that's the worst part of the game, but I didn't hate it like you did.
I thought it was better. Playing it this time, it was a little better with the Seasons of Infamy DLC added, where like you had the various other, because like 80% of it was just like stupid malicious stuff at launch, and adding in like the Mr. Freeze and the Ra's al Ghul follow-up stuff, like that makes it feel a little more Batman-ish.
Yeah.
But like it's still terrible. It's still just not at all what I want. I just wanted more Batman stuff, and they gave me this ridiculous like tank sim with like.
Still, most of it was that though.
It wasn't though. It was clearing out stupid soldiers, and it wasn't like and like the it was and like they had Mark Hamill's Joker sitting like haunting you in your head to like almost to like taunt you for like how interesting it could have been if they just used actual Batman characters, and the whole the Jason Todd Arkham Knight thing is one of the dumbest incorporations of anything that isn't a Zack Snyder movie, because like, look, as a comic book fan, I knew who that was from frame one,
right?
And it was weird because at no point had they set Jason Todd or his other sidekicks up in the Arkham game, so they had to do all that footwork in Arkham Knight, which was rushed and strange. And then if you don't know the comics, you're like, who the hell is this guy? Like, it's like it does nothing if you're a comics book fan, and it does nothing for you if you're not a comic. Like who was that for? Why was that there? I did not. Rocksteady dropped the ball so hard that it fell through the floor and into the basement on that for me. So yeah, I'm not super excited about whatever they might have up their sleeve next.
Wow.
To me,
I definitely am.
To me, that like blew their cred with me for until they prove otherwise. And I feel like a Suicide Squad Destiny clone is not going to be the thing that restores their reputation in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't their game though.
I mean,
they probably are working on it, but it's not their game, quote unquote.
We'll see.
Yeah. Still, you nailed it. And we'll get to see that June 4th, right before E3 kicks off.
Yeah.
So not long to wait.
I'm pretty sure this is this is their main thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Rocksteady's, I mean.
Oh really?
Yeah, I think Montreal's involved for sure. Montreal's like splitting their time, I think, between this and whatever the next Mordor thing is going to be. But I
think that was a big disappointment for a lot of people. They're like, wait a minute, like they're not making another one of their games.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it'd be nice to have a surprise Batman game up their sleeve, but I don't think that's what's happening.
Well, it looks like the Lord of the Rings IP was purchased by someone else. So,
was it?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's not exclusively, but someone else is making Lord of the Rings games now, and it's like some little like indie developer is making them. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I guess that indicates that Shadow of War sold a lot worse than we expected, or the monetization didn't take and they gave up.
It's true. So we'll get a first look at that on June 4th. Not much longer to wait. Not much longer to wait for E3, by the way. It's like 50 days away. So it's coming up fast. All right, let's move along. We're going to talk next about GameStop. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Honestly, I thought that discussion in that episode was one of the best discussions in the episode. We're not going to rehash a lot of that. That discussion was all about that GameStop was in financial dire straits and what can they do, what can't they do. Well, GameStop has tried to answer that question itself by changing one of its, I would say, most controversial policies, other than the fact that they give you 50 cents for a used game, and that is its prior no return policy. It has decided that it is now going to allow people to return games within 48 hours and get a full refund. You have to have your receipt. The game still has to appear new. Can't have any scratches. You have to take good care of the game, but within 48 hours, you can return a game and get a full refund. Matt, do you think that this is something that can turn the fortunes for GameStop?
No.
Yeah.
But it's nice.
So PlayStation
it's
just
too
changed.
little too late.
Yeah.
But
PlayStation just changed its policy as well on digital. Now you have like 2 weeks before you can like return something digitally, which seems crazy generous.
Seems like plenty of time to finish the game, but they must be tracking how long you play.
Yeah, that's all set up based upon how much you play. They can see how much you've played the game, and here this is just 48 hours. But to your point, it's the same thing. Like, we're going to talk about a game here in a minute that is not especially long, and you could have very easily went and bought it at GameStop and played through it like 3 or 4 times in 48 hours and brought it back and got all your money back. Doesn't it just sound like it's just a free rental policy?
A little bit. I mean, I don't see what else. I mean, it's interesting in the sense that it's like a massive reversal of their policy standards for
which was no returns
the entire time
under any circumstances.
Like, you assume, and even if it was like an open game that they a gutted copy, like they say, and I'm like, but like you're selling that to me for full price new. But if I brought that to you, it would be used.
Yeah.
Which is
I mean, they've been caught re-shrink wrapping games and
sure.
selling them as new, and
well, they do that anyway. There's like the last copies like had the disc pulled out of it, and so they just stick it in the thing and they put a sticker over it. And they're like, there, it's a new copy. No, it isn't.
no, it's
like,
not.
I've had that argument with many people.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to have the argument. It's just like they're like, oh, the last one we have is this. I'm like, okay, no, I don't
No,
want
you're
it.
wrong. You're
I'm
wrong.
like, I don't want it then.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, no, it's a new copy. I'm like, no, it's not.
You
It's
opened
not,
it.
I don't. If it's open, it's not new. I go get it at Best Buy. And like,
Yeah.
and the managers would argue with. I'm like, I don't want to argue with you. You said you.
I'm just gonna
as
go
far
buy
as
it
I'm
somewhere
concerned,
else.
As far as I'm concerned, you don't have that game new.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm not asking you to change your policy. I'm just saying.
I'm going to buy it somewhere
I'm
else.
gonna go get it
I'm
somewhere
take my
else.
money somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think that's been one of their problems. So it is interesting that this is the first thing they identified as like something they could change, but it's like,
Well,
bro,
no, this is
it's
second.
2019.
The first thing they decided was that they need to set up esports coaching stations in their stores.
Well, they haven't done that yet.
I mean, that they've confirmed. Like, GameStop hasn't confirmed this yet. This is all from insider information.
But I guarantee-
GameStop has confirmed the esports.
Right,
thing.
but I guarantee you this policy will be enacted faster than they'll start doing esports training.
Yeah, for sure. What do you see happen? I just see it getting worse. Like, I don't see how this policy. I mean, maybe it shows why it hasn't allowed returns all along, because I just don't see any good coming out of this.
I don't know. It's a desperation move, but it's just like, oh, everybody's offering this now, so I guess we have to offer it, and they're trying to play parity, basically, and it's not going to solve anything, but at least it puts them more on an even level with their competition in that sense. Like, what else can you do? It's not going to save the company, but
I mean,
it's years late. It's I
I don't think it's even going to help the company. Like, I think their financial reports are going to be worse.
I think the idea is like just they don't even make all that much money off the new game.
$12 per game.
So the idea is mostly to get people in there, like hoping that when you bring that game back 48 hours later, you'll impulse buy some Funko Pops or something.
Well, the other thing too is that they don't give you your cash back.
It's all store credit.
It's all store credit. So they're technically never losing that money. Mm-hmm. So maybe they look at it like, we're not really losing anything.
Yeah,
they have to pay.
We're just gaining a used copy very quickly.
Right, that we can then sell for $45 or $50 anyway.
Yeah, again.
Yeah.
For all profit.
Right, for pure 100% profit.
So it's not gonna make a dent.
Yeah.
But it's at least something.
Is there anything that can save GameStop?
I don't see what.
I don't either.
Like it's the model is old, and we've known it's coming for like a generation and a half, pretty much.
Yeah.
The discounts aren't there, the deals aren't there.
They have a horrible reputation.
Yeah, it's just not much you can do about it.
I mean, they still harass you like crazy when you go to buy something there. It's like, I just want to buy this. Please just take my credit card and run it and give me my freaking game. I don't want to sit here and argue with you about magazine subscriptions or some stupid Power Player plan you have. I don't care. I want to buy the game and I want to get out of here. Like, and they can't. They won't. Like, and I feel bad because the clerks, they're just brainwashed into just, they've got this rigmarole, this spiel that they give every time someone comes to the counter. And I just try to, basically when I get to the counter, I just try to give them the look like, bro, don't do it. Like,
well, they have to do it.
I know they do. They'll be fired. Again, it's corporate down, and it's just a bad company. Yeah. I mean, really, isn't that what it comes down to?
I haven't bought anything there in years.
I haven't either. PlayStation VR was the last thing I bought there.
I bought the GameStop exclusive Starlink ship. That was probably the only thing I bought at a GameStop in
probably because they were the only ones that had it.
Yeah, well,
and you wanted it.
Yeah, because it was exclusive.
Yep.
So I just walked in and got it, and the guy was like, "Oh, this game is weird. I don't even know what it is." I'm like, "That's not a good thing for a guy selling
for the clerk." Yeah. This is a desperation move of the highest order, and one that I think will probably just backfire, because try to take yourself back to when we were 13, 12 years old. If I had known I could go to a store and buy a game, and you could basically just rent for free for the rest of your life for $60. You buy the first game, and you just can keep going and getting them and then just returning them in 2 days. It's like you can just go on forever doing this. And we wouldn't do it because we're always going to move on and play something new or whatever. But kids, it's like they find a way that they can get free video games for perpetuity. Oh, they're going to work it, man. And those kids have nothing to do. Think about how bad it's going to be in the summertime when the kids aren't in school and they have all day to play games. I mean, even big games, like you could conceivably finish like a 30 or 40-hour game in that 2 days if you don't sleep, and they will not sleep. They will absolutely do that. So I just don't see any scenario where this works out to the good for GameStop. And I feel kind of bad saying that, because it kind of proves GameStop's old policies right in some weird way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like it was a money-making policy, but it wasn't a consumer-friendly policy.
Right.
And this is, but it's too little too late, so that's the end of it.
Yep.
Like, yeah, we're just going to slowly watch GameStop slide down the hill at this point.
I mean, I feel like we've already been doing that for a couple years now.
They're finally getting close to the incinerator. So.
Yeah. The trash compactor.
I'm thinking more the end of Toy Story.
Oh, okay.
3.
I was thinking Star Wars. I just saw Mark Hamill on some talk show, late night talk show, and he was telling some crazy story about the compactor scene. It was something that Harrison Ford said to him. He said they were shooting the scene, and they were in between takes, and he said to Harrison Ford, he's like, if I'm in a trash compactor, shouldn't my hair be like all wet and matted down? And Harrison Ford said, if people watching this movie are worried about your hair being wet, we're all effed.
Yeah, he said, like, kid, it ain't that kind of movie.
Right, that's what he said. It ain't that kind of movie.
People are watching your hair, and we're in trouble.
Yeah.
And then he said, next time I saw Harrison was like, I don't sound like that.
It's a great story. But anyway, that's what had me thinking about that.
But I'm always thinking about GameStop. I feel has been sliding down the junk pile into the burning, and I don't think the claw aliens are going to come save them.
Nope.
On this one.
Definitely not.
Although it is funny that their delaying tactic, their most effective delaying tactic, has been selling useless like tchotchke things like those aliens.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Funny.
That is funny. All right, we're going to talk next about another rumor. Actually, this is just a straight up rumor that's floating around right now. And that is that Disney is in discussions with Nexon to buy Nexon.
For something like $13.7
billion. I'm sure people read that story and were like, how is Nexon worth $13 billion? And if you live in America, I could completely understand why you would say that. But if you lived in Korea, you would know exactly why Nexon is worth that much money.
There's a reason Cliff was excited to get Nexon for Lawbreakers.
Yeah. So
didn't work out, but
yeah, it definitely didn't work out. And I would argue that part of the reason it didn't work out was Nexon's fault, because it didn't market the game. Mm-hmm. I felt like they gave up on it before it was even released.
I felt like Nexon didn't understand how to handle a real video game.
A real video game. That's a good way to put it. So you'll see in the B-roll that we have for this, Nexon typically does not make big budget AAA. He went back to that, by the way, in his last episode. They don't make AAA games, big budget games. They typically work on mobile. They make MMOs for mobile.
Mm-hmm. A lot of free-to-play stuff.
They also, for whatever reason, they handle a lot of the networking overseas for things like Counter-Strike and stuff like that. So say you're Epic and you're like, man, we want to get Fortnite set up in Korea. You go to Nexon, and Nexon's like, oh, we got it. Like,
yeah, they function almost like an agency.
Yeah, it's a little strange how it works. But they've never really made a hit in America. Korea, sure, but they've never really had a hit game in the West. So where do you think what is Disney thinking?
I think Disney wants that lucrative mobile pie.
But one thing EA is good at, and it has done a pretty good job with Star Wars as well, is mobile stuff.
Yeah, but I think we are seeing, first off, they want to do more.
Yeah.
And, the fact that they're re-establishing Lucasfilm Games says to me that the EA experiment has not been really up to their standards, and they want to. And also, Disney does this periodically. They delve into gaming, and they do it for like 4 years, and then they're like, oh, we don't want to do this anymore, and then they back away from it and get rid of everything and fire everybody. That's happened like 3 separate times.
I know.
People have been kind of freaking out about like this, and oh my God, Disney doesn't know how to make video games. I doubt people like us are ever going to really even notice
these games,
the outcome of these of whatever they do
for $13 billion, and we won't even notice.
Because we're not the ones they're trying to sell it to.
Yeah,
it's a different market, It's the super casual free to play like market with like like that all like Maple Story and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's their biggest game is Maple Story.
Yeah, like Maple's. I mean, when was the last time I played Maple Story?
Never.
Never.
I've never played it.
But I know 2 people who work on that game, and they're always busy. Like they don't even really have a day off. Like it just goes on and on and on and on because there's constant stuff happening and people are always on. There's millions and millions of people playing. It's huge. But if you talk to like me or you or people we know or play with regularly, we wouldn't necessarily even know what Maple Story is.
Yeah,
it's a very different world.
Now look, a lot of
like I don't think buying Nexon replaces their EA deal at all in that regard, or the Square Enix deal for Avengers or anything like that.
Interesting.
I think this is a completely separate venture, and they see a lot of money in kind of cornering this aspect of the Asian game market.
I mean, that is a market that Disney is not playing in as well. I mean, they're going from 0 to 100 real quick.
And they're starting to see like, it's also kind of a thing where it's like, we're making tons of money overseas, especially in China, with the movies. If we can synergize that with like these free-to-play games, if we can put out some decent, Avengers game or something, that could be huge in that territory.
I mean, one thing I will say is a lot of publishers trust Nexon with their biggest IP. Like, Nexon built the Dynasty Warriors game for mobile. That's what we're seeing right now. Like, Koei Tecmo trusted them to take that IP and make a mobile game out of it. And so, obviously, if these publishers are willing to trust Nexon like that, it has some cachet. There's a reason why Disney wants them. The other thing I would say is something that I've noticed more as an adult than I did as a young adult, is that a lot of times when you see how much something costs, it seems outrageous at first, and then you realize 3 or 4 years later that it was like a steal. So paying like what Microsoft paid for Minecraft, that seemed completely outrageous when we found out about it. Now, they've already made that money back. Now it's just gravy from here on out. It's just a license to print money.
And it's a 25-year investment.
Right.
Because you're going to have waves of that where like people who were 10 when they played Minecraft, now they're 30. And
they're going to give it to their kids.
They're going to give it to their kids. They want to play it again. It's going to continue that way. Everybody freaked out about $4 billion for Lucasfilm, but that they made that money back in one movie.
Everybody freaked out when King was purchased by Activision. Everyone's like, why would you pay that much money for Candy Crush? Well, they made that money back in a year and a half that they spent on King. Like, a lot of these deals that seem insane. The same thing happens in professional sports, too. People like Russell Wilson just signed this gigantic contract. He's a quarterback for the Seahawks. He's good. He's not like top 5 quarterback. He's the highest paid quarterback. But in 4 years, as the salary cap goes up, there's going to be the whole league's going to be getting paid more than him. So it's very easy to look at deals like this and say, and be short-sighted about it and say, that's a terrible deal. That's so stupid. You really have to look on down. And the smart businesses, that's exactly what they're doing.
Well, it's also you see like armchair business analysts sort of fall into that trap of
like us.
I'm not interested. I'm not interested in it, so it's a bad purchase.
Right.
Which is just not.
That's the dumbest.
Yeah, this is not how it goes. And Disney would not be forking over $13 billion or something if they hadn't done the homework.
I would argue as well that Disney is not going to fork over $13 billion if they're going to do what you mentioned earlier. Get into it, and then 3 years later, bail again.
You would hope. Yeah.
I think this shows a commitment to gaming from Disney.
But it's also like not the gaming we
would hope for,
care about.
Right.
It's not like commitment to making more Jedi Fallen Orders or whatever Crystal Dynamics is making for the Marvel license.
Yeah.
It's a commitment to kind of these disposable treadmill mobile things.
It is.
Which are big money makers, so it makes sense that you would be interested in that as Disney. But like I don't think it's going to do any good for us in the end.
No. We won't play any of these games.
Probably not.
No. I haven't played any of Nexon's games ever.
I can't remember anything.
I thought Nexon, didn't they have
I played Lawbreakers.
I didn't play that. Didn't they have like a big MMO? Lineage. Isn't Lineage Nexon?
Was that Nexon or was that NCSoft?
You're right. It's NCSoft. I always get those two companies confused because they're the same. They're these companies that kind of have tentacles in the West, but for the most part, they make all their money in Korea. But yeah, obviously, no matter what, a $13 billion deal would be a gigantic deal. And And I think with this deal in particular, it probably will take them 5 to 10 years to recoup all that cash. I don't care how big your mobile game is. Making $13 billion, that takes a long time, even if you're Candy Crush. So, again, I think that would indicate that Disney is at least serious at being in a part of gaming long term. Hopefully, the experience that it's had with EA doesn't tarnish it to a point where it doesn't want to work in the console space anymore. But
I think the sales of Fallen Order will prove to them that there's something there.
Yeah.
And we'll see how the Square Enix Marvel stuff does. I mean, that battle's not lost yet. Especially since they, if Square's stuff does extraordinarily well, you've got proof that like you don't need EA to have that kind of like level of, prominence.
Yeah.
Which can only be good for the Star Wars license moving forward. But I think what Lucasfilm Games is going to exist to do is to farm out the Star Wars license per developer, per publisher.
And be kind of the gatekeeper and
quality
control.
Do what they used to do when we were LucasArts. It's like, we want to make a game like this with Star Wars. We're going to go find the proper
We're going to work
developer.
with Factor 5 or whatever.
We're going to go talk to whoever we think will make this game the best. We want to make Dark Forces. We want to redo Dark Forces. We want to make Dark Forces all over again, from scratch. So we're going to go talk to Bethesda and see if id wants to do that like they did with Doom.
Right.
Because it was a Doom engine game before. So like, how fucking great would that be?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that's kind of where they're going to go with that, and that will be kind of a good model for that. Whereas if you want to kind of do this mass market, in-house like Asian market, like MMO, free-to-play like mobile stuff, you could do worse to jumpstart your business than to just pay a ridiculous sum of money for Nexon.
Yep.
So I think that's what their plan is. I don't think it's going to particularly affect us.
Yep.
Unless you're a Disney shareholder and you're worried about where that $13 billion is coming from, but they got a war chest and a half, so I'm not worried about it.
This is a long-term play, so it could affect us. Because my guess is when we're in our like 60s and 70s, we're probably going to be playing mobile games.
No, I don't think I'll ever.
It'll be interesting to see how we evolve over time. I know everyone I know that's old, they all play mobile games.
They're going to have to be good games first, and that hasn't happened.
Maybe
really.
by then,
maybe
in 20 years, they'll make a good mobile game. It's possible. Maybe. They haven't done it in the first 20.
There's been a couple good ones, but they're rarities.
Very rare. You think about the
Monolith Valleys and Infinity Blades are few and far between, especially these days.
Absolutely. All right, let's move along. We're going to talk next about Sony. We've had some people on SIFTD over the last year and a half, or maybe half a year, who've talked about this, and I didn't really notice it because I don't really care.
Right.
But Sony had been dialing back.
You don't play a lot of softcore anime games?
I don't. No. I do not. The most popular content on SIFTD, by the way, but I do not really care for them. And so people have been talking about this on SIFTD all this time. I wasn't really seeing it. And then over the last couple months, it became kind of obvious that Sony had begun censoring sexuality in not just its own games, but in third-party games. And in fact, I would argue more so in third-party games than its first-party stuff.
Yeah, I can't think of any real changes they made to first-party stuff.
Unless we just didn't know, and stuff was in the game before and they took it out before it was released.
Yeah, but
who knows?
Why would you know that?
But the third-party stuff is the stuff that stands out. And I know we were talking about Devil May Cry 5 when it came out. We were like, wait a minute, why are these weird, like, why is there a nude scene, but then there's like a bubble over this scene, but then in this other scene it shows stuff it didn't show? It was very weird.
Well, it was that the PS4 version had a lens flare over a naked butt, and the other versions did not, including the Japanese PS4 version.
Which is weird because usually the US version goes much farther than Japan as far as violence and usually sex.
I wouldn't say that about the sex. Violence, yes. Sex, no. Or at least not in terms of nudity. Japan doesn't have a lot of taboos about that.
Well, it does, though. I mean, Japan is weird about nudity. There's certain things that always have to be blurred out.
Well, you have to blur pubic hair.
Right.
But like that comes from a very old, weird law.
Yeah, it's very weird.
But in terms of just sort of like showing random nudity, especially in cartoon form,
boobies,
not a big deal.
Yeah.
A much bigger deal here, in part because games are still perceived as for kids,
right,
in America, and
I think they still are in Japan as well. Maybe more so now.
I mean, also like they just don't care if their kids are seeing boobs.
Yeah, and we shouldn't either, honestly. But anyway, that's not what we're going to talk. We're not talking about the cultural differences. Well, maybe we will actually get to there. But now it's basically become blatantly obvious. So obvious that the guy who is behind the Senran Kagura franchise quit. He quit. He's like, I feel like I cannot make the games that I want to make anymore, and therefore I'm leaving.
The artistic integrity of my anime boob game has been compromised.
It has been compromised, and this is where I draw a line in the sand. So that was like the news like 2 weeks ago, and so everybody was like, what is going on? Why are games on PlayStation getting censored when the same games are releasing on Switch uncensored?
I hate using the word censored for that.
I know.
Because it's not what that is.
It isn't, but that's what people associate with that word. What word should we use?
I would say it's edited.
Edited, okay. So games are being released unedited on Switch and edited on PlayStation, which that has never happened in the history of video games.
As someone who lived through the period of time when Nintendo games were not allowed to have religious symbols in them, it's a very weird time to be here where like, oh yeah, like Nintendo's the one that like lets the nudity happen.
Yeah, they've completely swapped roles, the two companies.
Even moving like with like I can't remember what it was, but there was some game where like the US version of the Vita, it was like one of those like touch the girls games on the Vita, and it was toned down for the US release, and then there's a Switch port that wasn't changed. Like it was not changed at all. It was like the original Japanese, like, you know, with all the excess touching or whatever. Nintendo doesn't care anymore.
It's very odd.
I'm very surprised. I mean, it's not that it's necessarily a bad thing that Nintendo's loosening up, but it's just like, wow, what prompted that? Like, what prompted?
Well, it's kind of been a conspiracy for like 6 months, and I just thought, oh, these people are just being crazy. They're just pissed off that the game was edited or whatever.
Well, I figure there had to be something, because like otherwise, why are you taking the time to change things or add lens flare to that one cutscene, or like something's happening?
And as it turns out, something was happening.
Something vague and weird is happening.
Yeah, Sony finally put out a statement about it. I believe it was last Friday, where it basically said that the Me Too movement has been a big part of it. And the other reason why they've decided to tone down the sex in their games is because of streaming on YouTube and Twitch. And where in the past they could release a Japanese version for Japan that most Americans would never see, now, also if you think about it, streamers are going to go after the uncensored version instead of the censored version. So now that with streaming and things like that, these regional versions of games are basically worldwide now. And Sony was afraid that it was going to get caught up in a lawsuit, or it was just going to be caught up in some angry social media campaign.
Well, then like the thing I saw that was changed, the recent one, was they were adding Steam to like a hot springs scene or something, and mostly the Steam was covering like this girl who looked like she was like 12.
Yeah.
Which, like, I don't have a problem with covering that up. Thank you.
Not at all.
Like, if Sony doesn't want that on their platform, like, I have no real questions about that. Like, so is this an example of something that's not
so
on?
Ridiculous.
Is that not on Sony now, or is this?
I would guess it probably would not be.
Is this?
But I mean, it was basically a girl with a dildo between her boobs. So
yeah, but what is this? Like, what is this from? Like, I don't know what game this is from.
I think it's from a Senran Kagura game. I'm not 100% sure.
Are those PlayStation?
Oh, this is on Mega Labyrinth.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, they're all the same, dude. It doesn't matter.
I mean, aren't these all on PC? For the most part, is Senran Kagura only Sony?
Well, you kind of need a touchscreen for these games, Matt.
I guess. that's just a mouse. He's a mouse.
These games are so ridiculous.
I mean, that's a big thing on Steam now too. There's like they've got the full porn games on Steam.
Yeah,
now.
they do. Yeah, they cracked it open. It's funny. Everybody's going the other direction, but Sony. Why do you think Sony is so concerned about this if other publishers aren't?
I don't know. Like, I don't really have a theory on that. Like, I don't have a theory on that. Doubly so in the sense that Nintendo doesn't seem to care. Like, if Nintendo was also doing it, I'd be like, it's just a sort of like, consoles. There's more of a standard. You can buy some of these things in regular retail stores. Like, I can understand why there's parental controls, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact that it's only Sony, like, I don't even have an idea on that. Like,
I mean, when was the last time you can remember Sony taking the moral high ground?
Not
Ever.
really. I mean,
Never.
Ever.
Never.
Unless you think there's a morality clause to crossplay.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the thing.
That's a good point. The other part of it too is that the developers and publishers are kind of left in a lurch because Sony has, and Sony said this, has not released any documentation whatsoever telling developers and publishers what is permissible and what is not permissible. Mm-hmm. So what the developers are doing is they're building their games, they're sending them to Sony, and then Sony's like, oh, wait a minute, you need to take this out. And they're like, oh, wait a minute, the game comes out and
that is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. The game comes out in 2 weeks. So these developers are put in this position where they're like, okay, well, it's not just, most cases it's not as easy as just putting fog over something, unfortunately. And so they have to go back.
Changing models and
right.
And things
they have to
like
go
that,
back and rework significant ports of their games. Their games end up getting delayed, and they are the ones who get punished when the game's delayed by the fans. They're like, oh, you can't get your games done in time. It's like, no, we can't tell you this, but Sony screwed us because it wouldn't give us the parameters to work with while we were creating the game. We had to do it all post-haste. So the whole situation, I mean, look, I'm behind Sony saying we don't want 8 to 12-year-old looking girls in compromising positions in games on our platform. I totally get that. But Sony needs to find a better way to implement its new policies, particularly when it's been different for 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna have those policies, I support that. It's your platform. Do it however you want. But yeah, you got to have the actual guidelines in place for the people making games for your platform to see, understand, and work towards. Like the fact, like, you can't take that sort of like I know it when I see it sort of thing that.
Because
that the U.S. Congress took, frankly, towards porn, where it's like it's not like you gotta lay down the definition and because delaying games to do that, you're costing these companies money. Because it's not cheap to keep all those developers still on staff, and you're not getting the income you were planning on because of your initial release date.
Yeah, it's screwing your whole business plan.
It's a real problem, and I know that Sony probably thinks that like they don't need to worry about it because they're they don't need to kowtow to anyone who isn't a triple A publisher. But yeah, it's just good business. Like you gotta like make yourself clear. So yeah, I don't know why they're being so vague about it. I don't have a problem with it because I don't care about changing weird porn content on anime games. But like you got to be consistent.
Yeah. I mean, people who work with you in business.
And apparently, if you do want the unchanged version, you can just go get the Switch
version.
Just
go get the Switch version, yeah. And the truth is, most of these games are so technically inept that they look just as good on Switch as
I don't think there's a huge performance difference between these.
You don't have to worry about 60 frames per second on these things. That's for sure. But do you think it's the right call?
Right call? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think it's going to matter, really.
You don't think it'll hurt Sony's business at all if people do start going and buying third-party stuff on Switch?
Not really.
No?
I mean, how many copies could these things possibly sell?
I mean, they sell like 20,000, something like that.
Yeah, it's not... It's that's probably one of the reasons why this is even happening is because... What the... Like, people know the internet exists, right?
Yeah.
You can just Google this shit.
Honestly, Matt, that's what just really blows my mind. That people...
You don't need to pay $40 for a PlayStation game for that.
No, it's free. There's this thing called the internet. There's naked people all over the internet. I don't understand it, Matt. I don't understand the appeal of these games at all. Not one iota. It's like, why would you look at these cartoons when there's the real thing?
Well, also, if you want to look at the cartoons, that's free too.
That's free too. Yeah, they're on there.
That too.
It boggles my mind. But look, I don't want this discussion to turn into like us making fun of people who like these games.
Yeah, we're not trying to kink shame, but it's just like we are trying to save you some money.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Yeah, seriously. And people are very loyal. The people that like these games love these games. They've been up in arms over this for a long time.
There's definitely a lot of like company loyalty in terms of like the different teams that make these games.
Yeah. Like the guy who heads up all the Senran Kagura stuff, he left. He was the guy who made all that stuff. So Xseed is now just left in a lurch. Why didn't he should start making his games for Switch or Xbox? Like, there's solutions to the problem instead of walking away. But it's interesting.
Oh, that's why it's Omega.
Yeah,
because it forms boobs. I get it.
Of course. It's pretty funny. But so you don't think it'll hurt Sony's bottom line at all?
No, most people are never going to know this happened.
I mean, but when you start talking about games like Devil May Cry 5, is the Xbox One version censored like the PS4 version?
No, the Xbox One version has the full...
Sorry, edited.
Full split second of ass
of
in
butt
it.
crack.
Yes. Honestly, if you did not buy the PlayStation version because of that, wow.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, I bought the Xbox version because it runs a little better.
Right.
But
it could get to a point where it does start to become more extreme. There could be games that have, like, what about like Grand Theft Auto 6?
Grand Theft Auto doesn't have a lot of naked nudity in it or like explicit sexuality.
But what if it does?
It won't.
Just as an example, I could pull another game. Let's just use Grand Theft Auto. What if it does? If it does have nudity in it, and the PlayStation version is censored or edited, and the Xbox One version isn't? You don't think that could affect Sony's bottom line?
I don't think they're going to do that to Grand Theft Auto.
Game X. How about a game that I made that you've never heard of? What if it was great and everybody wanted it, and PlayStation decided to edit the game for its platform, and Microsoft didn't? You don't think that would affect sales?
Not especially, no.
Huh.
I mean, I don't think, because
stuff like that will spread like wildfire.
Sort of, but also...
And they will use the censorship word. They'll be like, it's censored on PlayStation.
Of course they will, because they're wrong, but they don't care.
Right, but it will spread really fast, and like I think it could make a big difference.
I don't think it will at all.
Right now, we're dealing with these little dinky Japanese
and that's all we'll ever be dealing with, because they're never going to do that to a major publisher. They're never going to do...
They just did it to Capcom.
I don't know what that was, because it didn't happen in Japan. So why Capcom specifically did that to the U.S. version of PlayStation, the PlayStation version, I don't know what the story is there, but it can't have been Sony's universal guidelines because it didn't happen in Japan.
Well, they don't have them. That's the problem. They have no. Even Sony admitted, we have no documentation telling publishers what we will or won't allow.
Either that was Capcom kind of being preemptive about it,
possibly,
or Sony America has a different set of guidelines, or so. I don't know.
But that is an example of a big publisher, big game.
But it's also like
different on each
that
platform.
No one gave a shit about except like a tiny minority of people who care about a naked CG ass that was on screen for 2 seconds.
Right, but that's why I brought up that there are some games where people will care.
But I'm saying like that's never going to happen. Like that's they're doing this for these like explicit games because there's such a niche of a niche that no one's ever going to care beyond like this niche audience.
PlayStation probably doesn't even care that these are on its platform. They make so little money off of them. They're just like, it's not worth the headache.
Right, and if they wanted to, like, if the the response of the Senran Kagura guys, like, I'm just gonna walk away and take my ball and go home. Sony's like, oh no, like,
no boy,
look out.
Well, that's $10,000 less we'll make every year.
Like we'll try to care buried under 10 million sold copies of Last of Us 2.
Right.
It's just not it's not gonna be an issue. They don't want like this weird anime porn stuff, and this is how they're going about it, and it's kind of shitty in the sense that like I would certainly prefer if they just like wrote up some guidelines and said these are the guidelines, stick to these, like as long as you're within these you won't have a problem, and we're done. But they're not, because they're Sony, and they got to be weird about stuff every time, whether it's cross-play or this kind of play. And so I mean, I think it'll damage their reputation with some of these smaller developers, but like, what are they going to do? It's like even if you have to deal with bullshit from Sony, as these developers do,
you don't have choice.
You can't take your game off their platform, because that's where all these sales happen.
Make all the money.
And I mean, PC's still there for you, but there's very little piracy on the PlayStation 4 comparatively. So like, you have to get that money from this platform. So I don't think it'll matter really in the end. They're not going to do that to Grand Theft Auto, because Rockstar would just be like, excuse me? like.
But that's my point, though. It's like they'll do that to these small guys and try to say that they're standing on a moral high ground, and that's why they're doing it. But that's really not it. They're just trying to avoid controversy while still making as much money as possible.
Or maybe they just don't want naked children on their game
well,
console.
I can understand
which is
that
like
as well.
Fine by me.
Sure.
Don't do that.
I can understand that too.
I mean, it's kind of arbitrary, and sometimes it goes one way or the other. I imported Dead or Alive Extreme 3 because it didn't come here. That was Tecmo's decision, just because they didn't want to deal with the headache.
Yeah.
But it's just you're never going to have a critical mass of people upset about it enough to change anything really. It's never going to, if there's like a sex scene or something in The Last of Us 2, they're never going to come after Naughty Dog for that. You know that.
Yeah.
So it's just never going to affect anything that happens on a level that would require any kind of change.
Yeah.
I get why people are frustrated, especially the companies that are like, we don't know what the rules are.
Yeah.
We're just sort of guessing at this, I'm probably
You're basically just crossing your fingers when you send it in.
Probably not multi-million-dollar production, but a lot of money's being spent. It's not free to keep your development team on for another extra couple weeks to fix things that Sony decided had to be changed.
Sam is having fun with the B-roll today. He is enjoying his job today.
Sam's going to want some copies of this to take home.
Okay, let's move on. I think we've had enough boobs on the screen for GameFace. Let me just set a new record on GameFace for most cleavage in an episode.
Yeah, we don't really bring that to the table usually.
No, we definitely don't. I'm sure some people are disappointed by that. But all right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about the Xbox One S all-digital version. Longest title for a console ever, guaranteed. Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. Rumors have been flying about this thing for literally months. Like, the worst kept secret in gaming.
It's the Xbone Sad V.
It is. And it's, again, the worst kept secret in gaming for like the last several months. Microsoft finally confirmed all the speculation by announcing it officially this past week and giving us all the official details on it. And most of the rumors were absolutely correct. So it is, in fact, a disc-free Xbox One S. It still comes with all the accoutrements of the S, meaning you still get 4K HDR playback. Still can't play games in 4K.
Yeah.
That's only for the X. It is, and here's my big problem. It is $250.
It's a lot.
That is a lot. But you want to know what surprised me even more is the fact that the Xbox One S is still $300. That is insane, Matt.
The regular one is?
Yes. The S is still... So their big thing is it's $50 less than the S, and all you're losing is a disk drive. It's like, dude, that should be $200. Xbox One S should be $250 max at this point.
Yeah, they should have done a pretty major price shift.
Oh, by now.
Across the line.
To me, it's a huge mistake. Microsoft could have done what Sony hasn't been doing, and that's cutting the price on its hardware, and it could have had a competitive advantage. Instead, it doubles down on this. And then it had the balls to say, well, one thing we will tell you is if we ever drop the price of the S, we will drop the price of the all-digital version the same exact amount. So don't be afraid buying this that we're going to drop the price of the S next week by $50 and they're both going to cost the same. We'll drop the price of this as well if we drop the price of the regular S. It's like, gee, thanks, Major Nelson. You're awesome. 1 terabyte of drive space. You think that's enough for an all-digital console?
I mean, I'm 3/4 full on my 5 terabyte hard drive.
My Pro is already full.
But I've
only had it for 3 months.
But I've had that for a little over a year, and like bought all that cheap, sale stuff and everything. Most people probably do not fill up. I got 130 games installed right now on that thing, so it's, most people probably do not. Have
definitely not. And most people don't even have 130 games.
Yeah, but a lot of those games are like in the 60 gig range. So
yeah, it adds up fast. My Pro's already full.
If you're better about finishing games and putting them to rest and then uninstalling them than I am, it's probably plenty.
That's my problem too. It's like I've literally just had like 6 or 7 games I've been like on a rotation trying to finish over the last like month or two, and my hard drive's all packed up.
I also like to, it also doesn't really matter because, like, even if you're buying disc games, they still take up the same space.
Yeah, because you have to install them all.
They install the whole thing. They just do a disc check. That's the only difference.
It's insane.
It's no different.
It really isn't any different. So as the rumor suggested, and it was true, you get Minecraft, Sea of Thieves, and Forza Horizon 3 for free.
Or for that extra $50, then you shouldn't be paying.
Right, exactly. And then here's something that wasn't leaked ahead of time that's actually pretty awesome. You also get 3 months of Game Pass for $1.
That's pretty good.
That's really good. I mean, that's a $30 savings right there.
It's a good way to get... why is he wearing gloves?
Because they always do that for unboxings, Matt. Why? The better question is, why do people feel like they have to wear white gloves to open something?
So they don't get fingerprints on it, I guess?
What? Okay. It makes no sense.
It's the white glove treatment.
Every unboxing, they always wear white gloves. It's so stupid and weird. I don't really get it.
I mean, I get it if you're going to like allow like the press to take shots of the
and you don't want
thing,
the prints
and you don't want prints all over it and stuff.
If it's you sitting at your kitchen table unboxing something,
yeah,
you don't need to wear
different.
white gloves. It just, I think it's just become this thing where they're like, well, if you do an unboxing, you have to wear the white gloves. I don't get it. But that 3 months of Game Pass, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
There's 100 games on there. It's also launching just in time for Monster Hunter World. I mean, that could be a big driver of sales for this. If you're like, oh, I can get this, I can get these 3 games, I can get and Monster Hunter World that I can play for free for 3 months, that's not bad.
I guess if
you want an Xbox.
If you want an Xbox and you're interested in Monster Hunter World and you haven't already played Monster Hunter World to death and back.
Well, I mean, if you're buying it, you probably haven't even had a console up to this point.
I don't know. I think this would be a lot of second console sales.
You
here,
think?
Because PlayStation 4 is ubiquitous. At this
If you can't tell by the lower third at this point, I honestly have no idea who this console is for. I cannot figure out who would buy this.
I don't know.
I can't. It's like if it were $200, I think it does really hit that I'm way too cheap to buy a console at full price crowd.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I guess, for late adopters, but also I think they're just testing the water on how something without a disk drive will sell.
That's an expensive experiment.
They're Microsoft. They can take.
Yeah, I guess they can afford to do stuff like this.
It's better to take the hit on this if that's how this works out. It's better to take that hit on this than it is to take it on the next system.
Who do you think this is for?
I don't know.
I don't either. I cannot figure it out.
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't buy it.
Who would not just spend an extra $150 and get the X?
People that don't have an extra $150.
I guess.
I don't know. It's a mindset that's outside of my range.
Yeah, it's not in my purview.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I think at $200, it's more of an impulse purchase.
Yeah, I think it's literally a thing where they're just seeing like, will the market reject this because it has no disk drive?
Yeah.
Like I think they're just testing the water with it, and I'm sure it'll sell some. Like there's some people are interested, extra, $50 cheaper, right? Than an S.
Yeah.
Comes with 3 games and all that stuff. If you're in the market for an Xbox One S,
and you have no interest in
it's a good deal.
Discs and physical media.
Which I'd say the Game Pass subscription goes some way to alleviating.
Definitely. I mean, it always has at least 100 games on Game Pass at any given time. And it's getting big ones now too. And that makes it, and obviously you get all the first party stuff day and date on Game Pass.
I wouldn't at this point I would not probably spend money on Xbox One vanilla hardware.
I honestly would not spend money on any hardware right now.
Well, no, but there's a whole secondary market that doesn't jump in on this stuff until the price drops
Till the
at least
end.
to that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I know people that bought like the PlayStation 2 after the PlayStation 3 launched. They're like, this is when I buy consoles because they're like $100 or whatever. And then they have this gigantic library of games that they've been salivating
that was
over.
our bread and butter at the game store I ran in like 98, 99. Like it was right as the Dreamcast was coming out and like the PlayStation 2 hype was starting. But like all our customers were pure N64 PlayStation 1.
PlayStation, yeah. But I think you may be right. I think maybe this is them dipping their toe in the water, particularly before E3 is coming up, where presumably it's going to announce the next Xbox. Instead of learning the hard way like they did the last time around. I mean, this is still the hard way to learn. Don't get me wrong. This is an expensive little experiment that's they've got going on here.
This will probably also be the Xbox One
forever
model that exists through the next generation.
Probably.
For whatever remainder of the next generation, this is what it's going to be. I mean, they're probably not even paying for new parts on this thing.
You think they would be this instead of the X?
Well, there'll also be the X, I think. But I think the S, if you want an Xbox One S, this will be your S. The SAD will be your S for the remain. Probably, how many years do you think they'll sell it beyond the new systems launch? Like 2, 3?
Maybe. Yeah.
Like that'll be what that is.
I mean, Xbox, unlike PlayStation, Xbox has not kind of been like that, where people buy them late and then hold on to them. That for whatever reason, that seems to be more of a PlayStation thing. I don't know why that is.
Well, in part, it's because of the lack of backwards compatibility on the PlayStation.
That's a good point.
Also, I've seen a lot of people like theorizing about backwards compatibility for PlayStation 3 games on the PS5. No,
never happening.
You are not going to come up with a decent emulator for that cell processor
can't.
on the new hardware. No,
you can't.
That's what PlayStation Now is for.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's for.
I'm pretty sure that's one of the main reasons they bought Gaikai.
Oh yeah,
because they knew that's the only way to be able to bring.
Yeah, that was the end of the line. And it's funny that the PlayStation 3 is backwards compatible with everything before it.
Yeah, and then the
cell processor
it
just gets chopped.
Yeah, the cell processor meant that was the end of that.
Kutaragi screwed them big time with that whole thing on so many levels. Like short term, actually mid to longer-ish term, it was good because as developers got better with that hardware, the game started to look better. And I would argue at the end of the life cycle, third-party games looked, at least on par, in a lot of cases, better on PlayStation 3. But it took
agree with that at
4 years for them to get there.
They never ran as well.
They were able to milk everything out of the Xbox 360 almost immediately.
Yeah, well, the exclusive stuff definitely looked really good, but multi-platform stuff never looked or ran as good as the 360 version.
Yeah, it got a lot better towards the end.
It got a lot better, but it still wasn't as good. Like they never hit parity. The
bottom line is it just screwed Sony.
Oh yeah.
You'll never be able to make a PS3 again where everything's backwards compatible because of the PS3.
I mean, one day there'll probably be, PlayStation 7 will probably be powerful enough to run that emulator.
Yeah, because at that point, the cell processor, you can be able to put it on on your fingernail.
Yeah, but somebody's going to have to write that still.
Yeah.
And with all the weird, kludgy, I can't count how many stories I've heard from developers about how they had to kludge some weird thing together to make the PlayStation 3 version of something work because the cell processor, how it didn't talk to the graphics processor and didn't talk to the sound. Everything was weird, so and then then you take that and you just stick that disc in for another system that's trying to run a software emulator on that, and it's never going to work, right? I know people want it. In large part, people want it because they want a way to play Demon's Souls on a modern console. Yeah. And I get that.
Yeah.
But the remaster is the hope on that, not PS3 backwards compatibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or I guess PlayStation Now, but I wouldn't want to play Demon's Souls with that much lag.
Yep.
Anyway.
So this is coming out May 7th.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that by May 30th, we'll never talk about this again.
Probably.
I don't know. It just, you start thinking about all the R&D and the manufacturing costs to manufacture. I would
just
put a 1 terabyte hard drive in the S.
I would think about it
and keep the price the same.
I would think about it again because if I run into Major Nelson at E3, this is what I'm going to ask him.
Well, who is this for?
Why?
Yeah.
What is the plan here with this thing?
And maybe they'll tell us at E3. Maybe they'll be like, you wondered why we put out that goofy disc-free console? Well, now you know why, because this is the direction we're going.
Probably something like that.
Yeah.
But then why isn't there an X version? Or will there be an X version coming?
Maybe they show that at E3.
Maybe so.
That's actually a good point. That might happen.
Yeah.
Huh.
Weird times.
It is weird times. I like it, though. Everything's unpredictable. You just don't know what's going to happen anymore. It used to be everything just worked like clockwork. Every 5 years, you get a new console. It was a pattern that we followed for so long, and all those patterns just seem to be getting blown to smithereens right now, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have both of them. Both the big console manufacturers trying to reinvent how generation transitions happen.
Yeah, well, they're trying to figure it out.
Well, and more rumors saying that the new Xbox is even more powerful than that PlayStation 5.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Multiple places saying that their whole thing is to blow the doors off that thing. So God knows what we're going to be walking into spec-wise.
God knows what we're going to pay as well. I saw Sony came out.
I promise Sony
clarified. They're like, it will be reasonable.
Yeah,
meaning it's going to cost $500.
Yeah. Well, there's no way in hell Sony prices it at $599 US.
No,
ever. They'll never sell anything.
They'd rather sell it at $699 US than $599.
And that's too high. And Microsoft isn't going to want to be higher because they were high $100 more last generation, and it didn't help them. It hurt them a lot. In addition to all the other things that hurt them.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see both systems at $500, hell or high water.
We're gonna be the benefactors of that.
Yeah, it's
them
going to be
duke it
good
out.
for us.
Yep.
It can be good for consumers in the end, even though it is a lot of money. But
Absolutely.
for what you're getting, if the rumors on the Xbox are true, and certainly if the stats, we know the stats on the PlayStation 5 are true because Cerny's the one who said. So yeah, that's some serious hardware for that price.
I know other consumers don't want to hear this, but to be honest with you, like there's some things that are worth spending money on, and when you have to spend more money on them, you realize that you were getting away with like a steal for a really long time. It's like when Apple was like, "Oh, our new cell phones are going to cost $1,000," and people like lost their shit. And I'm like, what do I use more than my cell phone in my entire life? Nothing. Nothing. And so to say that something that I'm going to use more than I use anything else, and I keep my phones for a long time, so I'm like, I'm going to have it for the next like 4 or 5 years. Like $1,000 to me, I'm like, whatever. I'm like, look at all the other stuff I spend money on that's like more expensive, or if you extrapolate out the use that you get, would cost like 5 times that. And consoles are the same thing. It's like, I think about how many hours I've spent playing PlayStation 4 between my base unit and now my Pro. I mean, it's just been thousands of hours. And I got that for $400. Like, it's we've been very lucky. And in fact, this week on Pachter Factor, one of the questions was, why haven't game prices gone up? It's like, I pay more for food now. I pay more for gasoline now. I pay more for everything now.
I paid more for Genesis games.
Yeah.
And it's not even inflation
and game
adjusted.
And honestly, I think that was one answer that Pat gave, where I just sat there and was like, that's bullshit. Like, I don't know if you watched it or not,
No.
but like he compared it to like buying cars, and he's like, well, cars haven't really gone up, and then he explained how they had. Like, I don't know. I was not satisfied with his answer on it.
I will always go back to, I mean, part of it is just because that's how much you think people will pay for it. Raising them from $50, which they've been for a long time, to $60 was enough, for people to adjust to, I guess. But the cost versus like how much it costs to make them versus how much it costs us to buy them has never been better. I will always go back to the day the day Phantasy Star 4 came out, and I went to Toys R Us, stood in line, paid $99.99 for it, release day. For that damn, great game.
Never looked back.
But like you inflation adjust that thing. That was $180 in 2019 money.
But that's the thing, is that like this entire industry has
RPG.
never adjusted for inflation.
Right.
Like, we've been robbing these people. Nobody wants to admit it because everybody wants to get everything as cheaply as possible. But the truth is, we've been robbing Nintendo and Sony and these game publishers for years. Like,
That's why all the microtransaction stuff has been happening.
I know. Because
they're trying to make up that difference.
You're absolutely right. And I don't think people get that. They're like, I want my console cheaper. Well, if you want your console to be cheaper, then I want to hear you bitching about DLC and microtransactions for cosmetics. Like, if you're willing to pay more for a game, they wouldn't be there. So, and I don't know who's at fault. I don't know if it's the players at fault because they'll push back if they try to charge more. If you remember when they bumped it up to $60, there really wasn't much of a pushback. I mean, there's people at first when they heard about it, if you go to those articles, people are like, oh, this is bullcrap, they're trying to gouge us. But after, like 2 days later, it was over.
Well,
nobody cared anymore.
The worst thing about that thing was like, it was also coming off the tail end of the PlayStation 2 generation. And like moving into the Xbox 360, I suddenly realized like, God, I don't remember the last time I paid more than like $20 for a video game. Because like that was that like year-long period in like 2004, 2005, where just the prices just were down on all Dreamcast and PlayStation 2 and original.
Yeah.
Like everything
They're
just
all like
dropped.
$20 to $30.
And I remember Jason Chung and I would trawl all across LA's.
Our friend from Tech TV.
Yeah, all over the place. We'd go all over the place from
and G4.
Various DVD shops or like GameStop or whatever, and like we just pick up like super
bushels,
cheap, brand new, like in the shrink wrap, like brand new Dreamcast, PS2 games for nothing.
Yeah, I went to a Circuit City sale like at the end of that era, and literally every game was like $14.99, and it was all of them, and they had like 30 copies of like each one. Rest in peace, Circuit City.
Yeah. And then like we jumped into the new Xbox 360 generation. I'm like, oh wow, $60. I paid $60 for Condemned Criminal Origins. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's funny how it changes, but. So I guess what I'm saying is, to me, paying $500 for a console like that, no problem.
No, it's pretty.
And I know
pretty
people
good deal.
watching us right now don't want to hear that. They're like, don't give them any ideas. They're not getting ideas from us, trust me. But if these consoles have the specs that they're saying and they're $500, I will gladly pay it.
Yeah,
I paid $599 for the PS3, so
Although the flip side is, you always have to be aware when you're buying in that early, you are the beta tester.
Yeah. There's going to be problems and issues, and you're going to get a smaller hard drive than everybody else.
God knows what the Red Ring of Death equivalent for this coming generation will be.
And that is the thing, too, is that as the price goes up, so do the expectations.
Yeah.
Like, tolerance for stuff like that goes way down real quick, so you better have your ducks in a row.
Can't wait for all the tests of the audio monitors. Like how loud are the fans and all this, yeah.
And is it really like Dolby Atmos and like all that crap? It'll be crazy, but it'll be exciting. And I'm already getting excited for these consoles, and it looks like they're still like a year and a half away. So, at least. The good news is we got plenty of good games to play until then.
Although maybe The Last of Us 2 isn't.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's coming this year.
Did you see that leak thing?
Which one? There was like 2 in the last week.
Maybe like September 27th.
I mean, it looks like it's coming this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no shortage of great games to play
while we wait.
So why are they
so
so
quiet?
They don't have to be loud.
I guess not, but like it's weird that like.
Oh, they still got 6 months, something like that.
Yeah, but like I don't mean that. I mean like.
You mean Sony? Why Sony?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll never understand why they decided.
If that's true, if that's coming in
2019
September,
was going to be the year of silence.
If Ghost of Tsushima is really August, like that other leak said, like like. That feels like a thing you could promote at E3, and we would be okay with it.
Or your console is coming out the following year, but instead you're going to talk to Wired. Yeah, I don't get it. The good news is while we wait, there are plenty of great games to play, including the one we're going to talk about right now. And it is a great game, and it is Mortal Kombat 11. Matt, you've been playing it since last night?
Yeah.
And I've had it for a while. I've long since finished the campaign, and I've just since been kind of diving into all the other stuff that's in the game, and there is a lot of other stuff. Let's start first, though. I played the beta. I've talked pretty extensively about the gameplay and how the combat works already. You can certainly chime in on anything that you feel like maybe I was off base on a little bit when I talked about it. But I think we want to talk about like the campaign and the modes a little bit more, the stuff that we're getting to experience anew with the final version. First of all, I would say that I would not buy this game just to play the campaign.
No.
Because I finished it in about 5.5 hours.
It's not...
And I am not Daigo. I am not the world's greatest fighting game player, and I finished this game in about 5.5 hours.
Well, the campaigns in these games, NetherRealm
games, go buy it at
have never been
GameStop.
particularly difficult. This is about the same difficulty as any other NetherRealm
It is
campaign.
easy. It's too easy.
They've all been easy. You can put it up to very hard. Like there's multiple.
Can you from the beginning?
Yeah, there's difficulty.
Oh, I didn't even notice
right
that I
there
could set a
beginning.
difficulty. I didn't notice that.
It says start new game, set difficulty. Goes from very easy all the way up to very hard.
So yeah, I guess I would suggest that you crank it up. Because I played it on the default setting, and it was a cakewalk.
Yeah, I always find them like that until you get to like some of the later bosses.
Yeah.
I'm about halfway through it.
Some of the bosses at the end you have to beat multiple times as well.
I'm about halfway through it. It's good. It's a good story.
I think it's great.
It's a good story on par with like what we got from Injustice 2 or something like that. And you're the guy who was going about, what is left to do for story for this game? It's plenty. There's always more story for Mortal Kombat. You can go crazy with this stuff.
Well, I don't know that I would necessarily say the story itself is great. The way it's told is great.
Yeah, well, it's similar like Injustice. Like NetherRealm has a formula now for these campaigns, and it's divided up into 12 chapters.
Yep.
And each chapter focuses on a different character. You play for 4 matches.
Yep.
That arise organically out of the scenes that are happening in the story.
And each chapter lasts about 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah. Sometimes you have 2 characters and you pick which one you want to play as.
Yeah.
Injustice 2 introduced that, and then you have to go back and play the other character to unlock all the stuff that you unlock through that. High quality CG. Really good voice acting. Except Ronda Rousey's terrible as Sonya. She's noticeably worse than all the other actors in the game. To the point that
she's terrible.
I'd forgotten that she was voicing Sonya. And
why did they give her literally one of the leading characters in the game?
Well, because she's popular. But like early on, like when there's stuff when scenes were happening, when they're planning with her, talking to her, there'd be moments where she'd start talking like, why is that so different from? And I realized it's Ronda Rousey. She's not a professional voice actor, and it really, really, really shows.
Yeah. Hey Sam, put on the new B-roll Because we're talking about the campaign, and that's what all that B-roll is for.
And
yeah.
But in general, this story's pretty good.
It's great. I think it's great for the first. Right, you're right at the point where it starts to go off the rails a little bit.
I mean, I don't know about great. I mean, I guess great in terms of like fighting game story campaign. If you're,
I'm talking about the cinematography, the fight choreography.
Yeah, it's good. I mean,
and the story's passable for the most part.
It's what you've come to expect from NetherRealm. I mean, it's just they've got their formula down for this stuff, and that's what it's going to be, and that's great. But it does feel like it's going faster than previously, because Injustice 2 seemed like it went on and on and on. That was like a really long, like kind of epic tale. And when I quit for the night last night, I was a little surprised to see that I was like over halfway.
Oh yeah, it's not long. Again, I beat it in like 5.5 hours. And let's share what the plot is. First of all, the B-roll that you're seeing is just from the first,
it's the very beginning.
It's like the first 30 minutes of the game. So don't worry about any spoilers or anything like that. There is way more that comes after this.
And also,
even stuff that you're seeing that you may be thinking.
If you've seen the trailers, you already know.
You know more than what you're going to see from this B-roll. Absolutely. How do we sum up the plot? So, they do a good job of like bringing you up to speed with what happened in the last game.
A little bit. I mean, I don't remember too much about the last game, but
it picks up kind of right where the last one left off. Jax has been harmed. He had to step down from. He was a corporal, I believe, in the what are they called? The Outworlds. It
was the Special Forces.
Yeah, the Special Forces that's run by Sonya Blade, basically. Yeah. Because of what happened in the last game, he's no longer a part of the Force, and so Cassie is promoted into his position after she whoops Sonya's butt. That's how you basically get the position is you get appointed and you have to beat Sonya or the leader of the group to become the corporal. And so that's what she does. She becomes the new corporal. And then it kind of picks up at the end because Raiden, you're seeing this is the very beginning right here. Raiden and Shinnok. This scene right here, basically Raiden thinks he's killing Shinnok.
No, he doesn't. He knows he's not killing him, but he says his fate's worse than death.
Right.
So he cuts his head off because the head can't die. And so Shinnok spends the rest of the scene sort of like unable to talk because he has no throat.
Yeah.
Right. And later on you see that he's basically he gives Shinnok's head to zombie Liu Kang and zombie Kitana as a warning of like, I'll fuck you up, basically, if you don't like respect my authority.
Yeah.
Because Raiden, in the events of the last game, went when he got Shinnok's amulet, kind of went crazy tyrant.
Yeah.
That's why his lightning's red now. Is he's sort of like an authoritarian monster who like will step on everyone to kind of do what he thinks is the right thing to do. And that's why he does this stuff with Shinnok, and then through that he learns that like Liu Kang and Kitana are massing an army in Outworld at Shinnok's Cathedral in the underworld of Outworld. It's a lot of world.
There's another. It's like it's hard to keep track of the dimensions in this game, and it gets even more so as the game goes on.
So he goes to Earth and tells Sonya that that's happening, and we got to go stop him. We got to get your team to basically go. We got to go in and blow up the cathedral, and I'll go distract the billions of monsters that they have as their army, and you guys go in and blow the thing up.
Yep.
And they do, losing Sonya in the process. And
that's a spoiler.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because it's all time travel shit.
Yeah.
So after
well, we were gonna get to that, but
after that.
You're leaving out Chronica.
Chronica.
Who's the real bad guy of the game.
From a certain point of view.
You'll see. And she is the bad guy of the game.
And she comes in and she makes a deal with all the Outland people and stops time, and time merges in on itself, and so
she can control time.
So all the old versions, the younger versions of all the characters from the first Mortal Kombats show up in addition to the current ones. And so you've got like Raiden before he went corrupt, and it's sort of like, oh wow, I'm gonna be a bad guy. I don't want to be that. Maybe we shouldn't fix it. So there's a lot of like interaction with the younger and older versions of the characters, which is actually a lot of fun.
Well, what happens though is that Chronica wants to get rid of Raiden.
Right, because Raiden is the guardian.
Right, and he's the badass. He's the leader of the other group. She wants to get rid of him, so she basically rolls back time and wants to erase him from time. That is the overarching plot of the game. That's what drives the whole thing forward, essentially. And is it Raiden that's immune to the time shift, though?
No, he's just a singularity, so there can only be one of him.
Right.
So his current present-day jerky version of himself vanishes when the old Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 era one comes through the time stream.
And everybody else gets duplicated. So, like, there's like a young Johnny Cage and an old Johnny Cage. Like, every character ends up meeting, like, the younger version of them.
And, like, Liu Kang and Kung Lao aren't thrilled to learn that they become zombie monsters.
Right.
And
because they all end up finding out what they become.
Yeah. And Shao Kahn finds out that he got
He's
killed.
dead.
And
I mean, a lot of them are dead.
Yeah, a lot of them have been killed.
And they're like, wait, you're already dead. And they're like, what? How did I die? And they tell them how they die. And they're like, oh, that's terrible. I don't want to die. Like it's
the other interesting thing
crazy.
about Shao Kahn is I don't know if I've ever seen them portray him quite so much like a Shokan before.
Yeah.
Where like he always kind of looked like just a dude in armor.
Right.
And in this, he's clearly the same race as like Goro and Kintaro.
Yep.
Except he just doesn't have 4 arms, but
Right.
he's got like the stripes and the nose and all that, and the eyes and everything. I thought that was interesting. I don't know, maybe he's always been like that. I just never paid attention before, but this is the first time I ever noticed that.
And that's kind of the subplot too, is that there's someone who's taken over for Shao Kahn.
Yeah, Kotal Khan took over in the previous game.
Yeah.
After the game before.
Shao Kahn comes back and he's like, wait a minute, and they're like, oh, you died a long time. It's crazy.
Because Kotal was his general.
Right.
But now he's like, oh wait, you overthrew me and took my. And so the Shao Kahn from we're dealing with now, who's alive again, is like, or the younger Shao Kahn, like, had no idea that Kotal had that kind of ambition, and then like Kotal's like, like girlfriend / whatever was Jade before she became an evil zombie ninja, and she, younger version of her's back, and like there's a lot of fun stuff they do with the younger versions of the characters interacting with the modern day versions, especially Johnny Cage. Johnny Cage is the younger Johnny Cage.
The comic relief
is definitely the comic relief, but it's fun. It works. Like
it does work. Yeah.
It's some good gags in there with him.
Yep, and then there's several characters that are brought
also
back.
Really,
Baraka, Scarlet, Melina. They were all dead before, and in some ways, I would say that it's a cheap plot device because well,
you got to get those characters in the roster
right,
somehow.
Right, and with time travel, like you can do anything basically.
Yeah,
they use it as a plot device to bring back characters who are supposed to be gone and dead. Is really what it is. But they do find a pretty unique way to do it, and some of the stuff is permanent. Mm-hmm. Some of the stuff that happens in this game, it isn't just rolled back and
until next time.
Right, until they do it again. Basically, it's 20 minutes per chapter. Each chapter is a different character. It actually reminds me a little bit of like Eternal Darkness, particularly because it's cinematic and it's like story driven. But remember how Eternal Darkness was like that? It'd have 11 characters?
Yeah, I would never think to compare it to that. It's just the NetherRealm formula. They've been doing their campaigns exactly like this since Mortal Kombat 9.
Right, but some people may have not played it before, and I'm trying to find a parallel.
If you haven't played it before, then I don't know what you're doing playing this campaign, because you're not going to understand what the hell's going on. They've done a pretty good job.
No, I thought they do a great job of catching you up.
I don't think they do at all.
But I also feel like it's cheap because they use the time travel thing as the way to explain all the stuff that happened before. They fill you in every time. They're like, oh, you did this back then. And they're like, what? I did that? Like, they totally fill it in.
They fill in some of that stuff, but I don't think they do a good job of filling you in on like what the situation of the everything is at the beginning. Because I don't remember.
You mean that first scene with Raiden and Shinnok?
I played Mortal Kombat 10, but I don't remember exactly where that left off or what happened in it beyond Raiden's lightning turning red.
It was a long time ago.
And they don't really catch you up on any of that, like
until afterwards.
Until well after it.
Yeah.
Like, and when eventually they do cut to Jax being like sad and drunk in his house, and I didn't remember at all what had happened with him in the previous game at all. Like, and so they make a vague reference to the fact that he's not in this. He was honorably discharged. Like something happened to him.
Mentally and physically incapacitated or something.
But I didn't remember that.
I knew that Jax was like one of the casualties of the last game.
But I didn't.
But his daughter's in this, and
I was surprised there wasn't some kind of previously on something.
Because it has been a while. I mean, it's been what, 6 years, 5 years since the last MK?
I think it's been 4 or 5. Yeah. Because they've alternated between Mortal Kombat and Injustice for the last 5 games. I was surprised there was no kind of previously on catch-up thing, and I'm also surprised they did not add Mortal Kombat 9 to the Xbox backwards compatibility.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was last gen.
Right.
Because it is a trilogy. Like they all the first game is 9, and then 10 continue. 9 kind of covers Mortal Kombat 1 through 3, and then 10 sort of like went in a completely new direction with the stuff that follows that, and then this is all a completely uncharted territory.
Oh, this game also, by the end of this game, it's the end. Like, whatever happens next is going to be something that starts anew. This definitely closes off the arc of this whole thing that's been going on. But again, I finished it in like 5.5 hours. And I have really enjoyed it. And what's impressed me the most about it is the fight choreography and the cinematography. Like, they literally could cut the 4 matches out of this and just put this out as a CG movie, and it's better than any Mortal Kombat movie ever made. Hands down.
Well, there's damning with faint praise. But,
right. But still, I mean, they could release this as just an animated film, and I feel like it would do pretty darn well.
Yeah. But, like, then they wouldn't sell copies of the game.
Right.
People want to see
Well,
that.
it's interesting, though, like that conundrum. It's like, what do you make more money off of?
Well, I think NetherRealm would prefer to make money off people buying the game.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers might prefer to make money off of,
a theatrical release for it.
Well, you would never get a theatrical release. It would go direct to video.
I mean, there's probably 4 hours of cutscenes in the 5.5. I mean, the matches are literally, you fight 4 times per chapter. And if you're good, the fights don't last very long. I mean, each fight probably lasts 2 minutes, and you have 8 times 4.
Less than that, even, because the timer's 90 seconds.
Right. So you figure there's 12 chapters, there's 4 fights per chapter. That's 48. You multiply that by like a minute. Like, there's only really an hour of gameplay in the whole campaign. It's really, I mean, and that's really what I think struck me the most. And I know the last few have been like this as well, but it really, you're just watching most of the time. The fighting is just kind of a formality. It's very slick still, how they transition from the cinematics into the fights, and then vice versa after the fight's over, back into the cinematics. Very, very slick.
Not as slick when they transition to the fatal blows or the fatalities.
Nope.
I noticed. Like
you remember, that was what I harked on when I played the beta.
I think it's very weird how, like, when you switch to the fatal blows and the fatalities, all the custom items on the character go away.
They're all pre-rendered.
Yeah.
It's all pre-rendered. Like, if you notice, it's not just that. The background.
It gets very dark, so you can't see the details
Yep,
of them.
exactly. It's all which is weird.
Very weird.
Yeah, they're all pre-rendered. Like, the fatalities and the fatal blows. Yep, all of them. It's weird that they did that, but it's also pretty impressive how quickly it finds that video file and plays it, like, off the disc.
It's got everything ready to go, but, like, it's just weird in a game with so much customization that, like, when you hit the fatality or whatever, all of a sudden, like Sub-Zero and Scorpion aren't wearing their masks anymore.
Yeah.
Like, because the mask is customizable, so they it's just like a random dude.
Yeah, no, it's weird.
Very weird.
It's definitely strange the way that they decided to do it. But yeah, I mean, if you were just going to buy this, if you're not into playing this head-to-head or not into playing it online, you just buy for the campaign, like, it's a hard sell for me at $60.
Or at least
go buy it at GameStop.
Go buy it at GameStop.
Because you could beat it like 3 times before you have to return it in 48 hours. Easily. But actually, the first game they're kicking that off with at GameStop is Days Gone. That's what kicks everything off. So, there's no way in hell you're finishing Days Gone.
They're pretty sure they won't finish that in 2 days.
I can definitely tell you will not finish that in 48 hours. This, you can play it like 8 times before you had to take it back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a lot of people buying this solely for a campaign.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not why fighting games sell. I do think it's good. The fighting's good. It's very complex. The tutorial is one of the most detailed tutorials of just how to, like, fighting game concepts. Like, they explain, frame disadvantage and frame advantage and startup and all that. I mean, it gets into some terminology that, like, you maybe, like, would need an explanation of. You didn't know, but
probably should.
But it's also very important for, like, even if it's something that's like, oh, that's why I do that in a fighting game, because that's a mechanic and now I have a word for it, kind of thing. Sort of like it's a good primer.
You want to know what my favorite feature is, though, of the entire game as far as the fighting is concerned? The ability to go into the moves list and select moves that are up on the screen while you play. So you can go into the moves list and you can just flag whatever moves you want to display on the screen while you fight. And so what I would end up doing is because you play a different character every chapter, I would put up the moves that I wanted to do on the screen. And once I learned them, I'd take them down. But and if you're playing in the other modes where you can use fatalities and things like that, to have that fatality thing right up on the screen when you're trying to do a fatality, it's great. It even shows you the distance that you need for your fatalities. Let's say mid, short, or long.
Yeah, they had those on the last one, I think.
I never even noticed it. I never noticed it, but I found it in this one, and I freaking love it.
You definitely could put moves up on Injustice 2. I haven't played 10 in so long, I don't remember, but I know Injustice 2 let you do that.
Maybe the way the UI works in this, I just noticed it this time.
That could be.
But I have been using it, and I love it. I think it's great, and you're right, the tutorial is awesome. But let's start talking about some stuff that isn't so good. And there are some parts of this game that are not great, but I think the good news is that most of it is in modes that the vast majority of people aren't buying the game primarily for.
Although they are the modes that you're expected to be playing the most.
Yeah, and basically it's how the game handles cosmetics. It is like most games, and I think, it's a little odd for me because I love Ed Boon, and it's surprising to me that one of his games would do this, and I wonder how much it was meddling on Warner Brothers' part. But basically, you're going to have to pay for cosmetics. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Because the in-game currency to get it is such a grind. I mean, it's something they could easily tweak, and I would not be shocked if they knew all along they were going to have to tweak it.
They already said on a live stream yesterday they are working on tweaking the rate at which you get the various currencies.
Okay, so they're not going to change the prices. They're going to change the rate that you
earn
it.
The problem isn't because the problem, unless I'm missing something, you can buy time stones or whatever those things. That's the real money currency you can buy. The problem I have is that the way you unlock stuff the most is through the crypt, which has been a Mortal Kombat tradition for however many, going on 15 years or something now. And I think the crypt in this is really cool. It's a full recreation of Shang Tsung's island from the first Mortal Kombat. All the the classic stages are in there in full 3D. You'll find all the locations.
Oh, we should mention the stages in this game are freaking awesome.
They're pretty cool.
They're really freaking cool. There's all kinds of weird stuff going on in the backgrounds that I don't notice the first 10 times I play a stage.
I miss the stage transitions from Injustice.
Yeah, I guess.
I know that. On one hand, I guess it's not really what they're about. This is, but on the other hand, these guys can survive these fatal blows. They can survive being knocked off a cliff once in a while. But it's a cool thing, like Kodokan's arena. There's these crazy monsters climbing out of the pits and fighting each other and all this stuff. There's some cool stuff in there. NetherRealm commits to their aesthetic. You can never accuse them of not believing in that.
At the end of the campaign, there are some crazy stages, really, really cool stages.
But so I'm wondering, looking around the crypt and stuff, and you're just the amount of the various currencies. There's coins, there's soul fragments, and there's hearts. And you earn hearts. There's a bunch of chests in there that are either 200 or 250 hearts to open, and you get a heart per fatality.
Yeah.
It's too slow. And as far as I know, there's no way to transfer the real money currency into hearts or whatever. I don't think that's a thing or if there is, I haven't found it yet.
Oh, it will be there. I guarantee if it's not there now, it will be.
I mean, because the thing you're supposed to use the paid currency for is they sell individual upgrade aesthetic things on the store.
Right.
So okay, instead of going through the crypt and hoping the random number god gives you the thing you want, it goes up, it rotates around on the store, and you I'll just buy it with the real money currency. And the problem is that the various currencies you use accumulate at the speed of a free-to-play mobile game. And this isn't a free-to-play mobile game. It's a $60 frickin' full game. And I used to one of the few saving graces of the stupid original Xbox era Mortal Kombat was running through the crypt and unlocking all this stuff. But you can't do that in this game because they're so stingy with all the currencies. And it's you've already paid full price for this thing. Let me play the goddamn game.
Well, they also randomized a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, the randomized stuff is worse than ever.
So you won't even be able to use a guide to get through this stuff anymore because there's no order for it anymore. With the last game, you could kind of skirt around some of this stuff because you could just use a guide and it would tell you exactly how to do it.
I believe the heart chests have set set contents, but like you'll see like Chronica spheres on the wall in the crypt that like you can reset all the normal chests again, and then open them all pay coins again to open them all, and hope you get better. Hope the roulette's better this time.
Yeah.
Like that's what they want you to do, is just continually, throw yourself at the mercy of the random number generator and hope that you get the thing you want. There is in the towers section, and that's a whole other thing. But you can pay or do a thing where you can open a tower for a specific character, so that tower will only give you stuff for the character you want to focus on.
Right, which is nice.
Which is fine.
Because when you talk about fighting games, people find a main.
But the tower thing is a whole other can of worms. Because it's almost exactly like the multiverse thing on Injustice 2, where you had it was all online. They changed out things like either on a weekly or sometimes a daily or sometimes an hourly basis. New planets would come up and you'd play those. So these are all towers, like the old towers in the arcade games. Yep. But they use all these modifiers. So like sometimes there'll be missiles firing at you that drain your life and give your health to the opponent. Or sometimes the opponent will be magnetized and pull you in, and so you can't really control the distance between yourself and your opponent. Sometimes they'll be like you have to do extra damage, whatever. And they just pile these modifiers on and on and on. And what you have these things called consumables, obviously spelled with a K, that you pick up. You pick up in the crypt, or you pick up in the tower mode, or you can use your real money currency to buy. And these consumables tend to be designed specifically to counteract the modifiers that are ruining your frickin' game. And there are points at which, if you are not using these consumables, you are not going to win that match.
Oh yeah. There's some fights in it that you just aren't going to win.
No.
It's so cheap. I cannot believe
and that was not in Injustice 2.
I know.
I mean, there were modifiers, but they never made it impossible to do. And
I'm shocked that Ed Boon had allowed this in the game. I mean, it is that bad. If you are interested in playing these modes, these are huge barriers to enjoying them.
If you're going to put, if you're going to do that, if you're going to put stuff like that in and make that part of how the game functions, you need to drop the price.
Yeah, for sure. Because you're recouping so much money on this crap.
The more free to play mobile ideas you put into your game, the less
cheaper the game
should be able to charge for.
Yeah.
It. So the problem here is that while I do think it's a really good fighting game, I really as a Mortal Kombat game, like one-on-one playing fights online or with locally or whatever. The combat system, how it all works, all the various things, the flawless blocks, all the new things they've added, it's all great. It's an in-depth fighting game that I've enjoyed playing.
It's tactical,
but I don't feel like I can tell someone to spend $60 on it.
It's hard
because it's so infested with all this and even if you don't, it's not a thing where it's even if you don't want to spend money and don't want to play it, it makes it not fun because it's such a slow drip feed that I feel like I'm not getting anything out of it, even if I'm playing for a long time. And they didn't balance that right. And maybe this whatever thing they talked about yesterday, maybe that will fix some of it, but I doubt it will go all the way to fixing it. It's very noticeable and it's very interfering into the flow of and the fun of the game. And I agree with you. I'm very disappointed that something Ed Boon made has this in it, because they so far have resisted that idea. Even in Injustice 2, which did have time skip real money options, but it didn't ruin the game for someone who was trying to just play it normally. And I think this game, in terms of the towers of time or whatever they're called, that was a real longevity booster for Injustice 2, was having that mode. And that mode is not this on this. It's just frustrating and annoying.
The other thing, too, is that some of it's not just cosmetics. Some of the variants for the characters change how the characters play.
Yeah.
They get a different weapon. Instead of using a chain, they'll use a freaking pole. It's not just I really want that purple gi and I'll pay $2. It's not that. There's more to it than that. There are color swaps and things like that, but the DLC or the cosmetics in this game go beyond just color swaps and palette swaps. So it's dicey, man. I would argue the total package is probably still worth $60. I would not buy it just for the campaign if that's all you're interested in playing. That makes it a red box special to me.
Mm-hmm. If you're really gonna play hardcore online, just competitive,
it's worth the money.
yeah, it's worth the money. But if you want it, if you think it's going to be a total package of like all this content to do the way Injustice 2 was, I think Mortal Kombat's microtransaction and annoy you with how slow progress is until you break down and give us money. I think that element is so prevalent
that bad.
It's not the same thing as Injustice 2, where like Injustice 2 felt like it had all this stuff to do, and like if you wanted to spend money to jump ahead, you could, but you never felt like pressured into it. And I think Mortal Kombat pressures you to do that constantly.
I agree 1,000%.
And I think that's shitty.
It is. It absolutely. That's why I can't believe Ed Boon's game. Like, the only thing I can figure is that Warner Brothers finally just beat him into submission and was like, "Look, you want to keep making these games? This is what we're gonna do."
I guess, even though they sell 10 million freaking copies,
it's mind-boggling.
It's the best-selling fighting game going right now.
It is. I mean, it's the best-selling fighting franchise.
I mean, not even that. I mean, also Injustice. Injustice sells great too. Like
NetherRealm
is gold. NetherRealm's money in the bank every single time they make one of these.
The only thing that can screw it up is Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers.
That's the sad truth.
Just like they did with Shadow of War.
Yeah. Yep.
And Shadow of War was a similar thing. It wasn't as blatant, but there was that element once you got into that last act of the game where you're like, I am not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Like that, it was that feeling of just like, yeah, you're just on this treadmill and it's really obvious and nothing. You're not feeling rewarded. You're not feeling like you're making any headway, and like they're just dangling that real money carrot on that stick in front of you. And like I never went for it in Shadow of War. I just stopped playing it.
Yeah.
But this one, I mean, at least Shadow of War waited until Act 4 to do that to you, and on this game, it's right there.
Yeah.
As soon as you open up the crypt, you're like, oh, I get what you're after. Like when I was like, I'd been playing the crypt for like an hour, and I had like 200 soul fragments, and finally I found the item I need to open the chest open the things that use soul fragments to be opened. And I was expecting that because of how rare the soul fragments I was, every time you open a new area, you get like 10 soul fragments. I was expecting it to be like, oh, it'll be like 10 soul fragments. No, it's 100.
Yeah.
It's 100 soul fragments to open these chests, and there's dozens of them.
I know.
And I'm like, where am I supposed to get that much? And I did find more in certain chests, but you're again at the mercy of the random number generator.
It's all crunching underneath the hood, and let me tell you, that algorithm is designed to pull money out of your wallet, guaranteed.
And it just constantly feels dirty and manipulative. And
it's a shame.
It is a shame. If you rebalance this, all you need to do is rebalance how fast you get that currency and how it all works in that regard, and it would feel like and you can leave it for like people who want to jump ahead or pay extra money for whatever. That's fine. But like I feel like they've tilted it too far away from giving a decent experience to someone who doesn't want to spend money.
Pay. Yeah.
But the thing is, I did spend money.
I know.
I spent $60 fucking dollars.
Yeah.
I don't run into games very often where I feel like they cross that line so hard.
Well, I mean, how often do we talk about it on the show? Like, hardly ever.
Not too much. Usually the balance is better.
Because they figured it out by now.
And like they completely blew it on this one.
It's that bad.
It really is. If you don't like that kind of thing in your games, don't go anywhere near this one.
I would also guess that they're going to do a huge about face on this in the next 7 days.
They have to.
Because what's going to happen...
It's ruining my fun.
I was actually surprised that more reviews didn't make a bigger deal out of it than they did.
Same.
But I have a feeling that once it gets into the hands of players today, tomorrow, Wednesday, by the time you get to the weekend... People are going to be pissed.
Yeah, like I'm already having trouble on the towers thing. I'm already having trouble progressing without it. And like I'm not bad at this game.
That's no cakewalk. It's like when I said the game is easy, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about the campaign.
Yeah, and I'm not bad at this game.
Oh, you can't win. I believe you cannot win some of those matches.
Also, keep in mind the modifiers do not affect your opponent.
Right.
Like there's missiles flying everywhere, but they won't hit them.
Yep.
Like you're just gonna get knocked out of your stuff constantly.
Yeah, it's just gonna screw you up. So, I mean, I would still. After talking with you about it, it's making me second guess it. But I think it's still worth $60. I do have faith in Ed Boon, and I do think that he knows that this is wrong, and I do think that maybe he was waiting for the fan feedback to be able to like really make his point.
That could be, but I can't recommend it if you're gonna do anything with it other than just play versus. Like if you want to play versus, if you want to play in local tournaments, and the
campaign isn't touched by that
campaign's
stuff.
good, but like if you want to play, if you need if a 5-hour campaign and a competitive game is enough for you for $60, sure, great, done. But if you are expecting something like Injustice 2, which was a total package of a competitive game, a really good campaign, and all that kind of endless content, like playing through those multiverse worlds, because those Multiverse Worlds also had the modifiers, but I never felt just stonewalled the way I am in this game.
I gave up.
Yeah.
I was like, if certain fights, you're like, I cannot win this. It's like they know what you're going to do before you freaking do it, and they block everything.
I was watching a streamer named Maximilian Dude. He does like a lot of fighting stuff, but he was trying to get through some of these things. It was a group fight thing where he had like his friends helping him with like basically almost like assists bringing in. Yeah. And I don't know how many tries he tried, but finally he beat the match, and the game crashed.
That's like me playing the Division 2.
I have had four crashes.
Wow.
In this game.
I haven't had any. I've had none.
Maybe it's a PS4 Pro thing.
I have a Pro.
You have
I'm playing on
okay.
Pro. Yeah.
It's crashed several times. I haven't really lost anything, but it crashed multiple.
That is surprising.
Crashed twice during the campaign, and twice when I was playing tower stuff.
Wow. I would say the netcode in this game is rock solid.
Netcode feels pretty good, but it was never online. It didn't crash online. It's been 2 campaign crashes and 2 tower crashes. And to be
usually
fair,
I'm the one who has the crashes, and you don't.
And to be fair, the crashes on the campaign were not an issue because the checkpoints brought me right back up. It was. I mean, it wasn't. I didn't lose much time. But wow. But Maximilian Dude.
That's a different story.
He just stood up and said, "That's perfect. That's this whole thing."
That's when you just close the stream.
He did. He was just like, "It sums it all up. Like that's it. That's this game."
Yeah.
But I mean, he'd been trying to get through that for I think it was 30 minutes or more for one match.
Yeah.
One specific match.
I think I would still recommend a purchase. I do have faith that they're going to get it fixed. It's not going to stay this way for a long because it's so bad.
I'm sure you're right, but I'm still going to say wait for them to fix it.
Yeah, you could do that because I think it'll be.
You know what? Like Anthem's sort of the same way, and they still haven't gotten fixed that. So.
Yeah.
I mean, all this would need is a rebalancing
Ed
of some
Boon
ones
didn't work
zeros.
on Anthem.
True. I just
have a lot of faith in him. I just do.
And we'll see
I've known him for 20 years.
We'll see how incremental they make him do it. Make it do it. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like it's going to take it's a pretty heavy shift
to
make it fair.
I think they're going to get the clap back to match. I think they're going to hear it over the next few days.
I hope so because it's like you make currency too slow, way too slow.
Absolutely. So in honor of Mortal Kombat coming out, our poll of the week on Twitter this week was all about fighting games. And if you guys are not following us on Twitter, please do. We're at SIFTD Games, and we're doing a poll every week on our Twitter page, and then we're going to bring it up on GameFace. And this week's was, what is the best fighting game franchise? So the reason we phrased the question this way is because I knew that Mortal Kombat and Injustice are the best-selling fighting game franchises. So I was interested to see if, even though everyone's buying them, do they actually think that they're the best games? So bring up the poll, Sam. And it's tough because Twitter only allows 4 options on a poll. That's the max that you can have. So obviously Tekken's not there, Dead or Alive is not there, Soul Calibur is not there.
Even the SNK fans out in the cold.
I mean, it was hard to cut it down to 4, trust me. But this is the 4 that we settled on. I'm surprised there wasn't more support for Marvel vs. Capcom. Because it kind of is.
A lot of the people that love the Marvel vs. Capcom stuff are going to default to Street Fighter as their favorite.
But this poll is really interesting because Mortal Kombat is the best-selling fighting franchise, and it is 3rd as far as what the quality and whether people think it's the best fighting franchise. I mean, Smash Brothers, for being a platform exclusive, did pretty darn well in that poll. Yeah. I was pretty surprised by that. Street Fighter, though, reigns supreme.
I would guess Smash Brothers Ultimate is going to sell more than Mortal Kombat 11.
It'll be close. It'll be really close.
Smash Brothers has not traditionally sold that much, but it looks like Ultimate is on track.
This one absolutely is. And people obviously love it. It got 29%, and Street Fighter just ekes it out with 32%. But I think ultimately our Twitter followers got it right. I think Street Fighter is the best fighting franchise.
I agree with that. But I mean, Mortal Kombat sells the most in part because it appeals to people who don't normally play fighting games and answer polls about them on Twitter.
Definitely sells more to people who do not follow us on Twitter or have never heard of SIFTD in their entire lives. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I like the audience that we attract on SIFTD. We have the hardest of the hardcore. If you're not hardcore, you don't stick around on SIFTD. Yeah, if you're not hardcore, you don't watch GameFace. I'll guarantee you that. That's for sure.
Well, if you're not hardcore, you aren't watching a 3-hour show.
For sure.
Two 40-plus dudes babble about nonsense about video games for 3 hours. Yeah, that's a hardcore activity.
Absolutely. And
hopefully you're doing something else while you're listening to us too.
Yeah.
You got to multitask.
I'll fully admit I listen to our podcast afterwards. Like,
really?
Oh yeah. Tomorrow while I'm working, I will listen to our podcast.
I don't. I don't. Also because I don't like my voice.
But
I'm kind of used to it now because if you do enough VO, you get used to it.
Yeah.
But it's like I don't need to hear what I think. I know what I think.
I mean, I listen to it for critical reasons, like how's the audio, like what part of the discussion did I drive the wrong direction? How could I do it different next time? And honestly, I just think our podcast is good. Like I like listening to it. So yeah.
Yeah, everything I do is correct. So.
There you go. No, I get it right the first time every time. I don't need to see it again.
I like to put on if I'm not playing a game with the sound on, which sometimes I'm not if I'm like cleaning up open world stuff on something.
Yeah.
I'll put on like history podcast or something and just like Assassin's Creed is good for that.
Yeah.
Just like endlessly running around ancient Greece listening to podcasts about ancient Greece.
Yeah.
That's what all the cool people do on Friday night, right?
Right. All right, that's going to do it for the show. It's time for our trailer of the week. I would have loved to have made it an MK trailer because obviously that's the big release this week. But there's this other little fighting game that had a huge update this week, and that's Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I'm sure people are pissed off that we did not talk about the update on the show, but neither Matt nor I are huge Smash players. I haven't even checked it out, to be honest with you.
Neither have I.
But I wanted to make sure that we showed it some love on this episode because, one, people just need to know that the stuff is out there, and two, we want to make sure we have some Nintendo stuff in every episode. So, the trailer of the week this week is for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Otherwise, that Nintendo person who's assigned to us won't have to watch it.
Yeah,
and that's
they get the week off.
Yeah. You get no weeks off.
I do have a feeling, though, this trailer may send up some flags on YouTube, though.
Probably.
And not because it's Nintendo, because now all their stuff is cleared, but because it has Joker from Persona 5. Let's roll it.
Joker, it's the moment you've been waiting for! So many legendary fighters! Awesome!
Are you sure he can handle this?
I mean, he's got a knife and a gun. I'm sure he'll be fine.
I don't know. They look pretty tough.
Harness the power of the heart to summon a persona. Unleash the rebellious spirit growing inside you.
Persona!
Oh, Arsene.
Arsene? Can't he use a more powerful persona?
What are you talking about? Arsene is awesome!
It's Joker's main persona. As long as you hold on to your rebellious spirit, Arsene will give your attacks an extra punch. Wow, he can use wings instead of his grappling hook. If Joker is attacked while Arsene is around, he can counterattack with Tetrakarn and Makarakarn. A counter that's also a reflect? Is that even allowed? This is mementos? The palace birthed from the hearts of the masses, right? Yes, and mementos has a little secret.
Isn't its entire existence a secret?
The base color changes depending on the music.
Seriously? That's awesome!
I can hardly believe my eyes!
Now's our chance! Let's help him out!
Witness the power of the Phantom Thieves! Go! Beat 'em up! Smash is looking cool, eh, Joker?
So, Matt, a little strange that Persona 5 is not available on Nintendo hardware.
Yeah.
And he's in the game.
I mean, I assume it's coming. but,
We had
like,
talked about how we just assumed that they would announce Persona 5 for Switch on the day he came out for Smash, but that did not happen.
I guess we're waiting for the E3 Direct or whatever, if they have another Direct coming this month or next month. I don't know. It's just weird that Smash Brothers seems like it's supposed to be sort of a. I mean, I guess it doesn't make that. It's not that crazy, I guess, because like Cloud wasn't on a Nintendo system.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's just
That's true.
It's just they're representing a franchise that is associated with Nintendo systems, but they don't always go for the character that is related to the Nintendo. It's weird.
Yeah. Hey, Twitch for fun. Thank you very much for the bits, man. Really appreciate it. And it's time for our Q&A as well. You guys are very well, as normally, you guys are very well trained. You've already got questions in the chat. W. Matthew is hooking us up with the MPD information that just came out while we were prepping for the show. March MPDs are out. Switch is the best-selling hardware, not a shock. Division 2 is the best-selling game. The biggest surprise is Smash is at 5th this many months out. What's your overall opinion of the MPDs? I don't think it's surprising that Smash is still at 5th.
No, that seems about. Nintendo games hang on pretty long.
But particularly Smash. I mean, people are still getting Switches. People got gift cards for Christmas. Then they got their Switch, and they're like getting games.
Somebody's got to be the new Mario Kart 8.
I mean, also last month was not a gigantic month for games. There were like 4 big ones,
especially on Switch.
Yeah.
Like if you're buying a big game on Switch, it's Smash is still it, even all these months later.
Yep. My thoughts, I mean, it's pretty much as expected. I think everyone assumed the Division 2 would be the best-selling game. Switch best hardware, maybe that's a little surprising.
I don't know.
They didn't have any new games coming out.
Yeah, but the other hardware is so old now.
Yeah.
Like,
you're still building your audience on Switch.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones are just kind of like there.
Yeah, you're definitely on the downslope with the other systems.
The other systems are just making all the money off software now.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the golden age. This is where they make all the money off a generation.
Although if I was thinking about buying a Switch, I'd probably be waiting to see what those new models look like.
Oh, yeah?
But then maybe if I'm waiting to buy a Switch, I don't know that those new models are coming
Probably
because I
not.
don't follow the industry that closely.
Probably not.
So.
Probably not. Justin Horman. Has Mr. Kyle been playing Ninja Gaiden 2 since it went backwards compatible? He was when I left here last week.
Yeah, I played a fair amount of it. It's still good. I forgot how gory it is.
How many incendiary shurikens have you eaten?
Oh, not too many. That's pretty much the first thing you learn to deal with. It's the werewolves that drive me nuts more than anything else.
Yeah, they're evil, man. They're tough.
But the Scythe deals with it, more or less.
Yeah. Is that what you're
it's a good
using?
Game. Yeah, I switch between the normal sword and the Scythe. Those are my 2 favorites. I also went back and played a little bit of Ninja Gaiden Black, the first one.
Nice. How far did you get before you quit? The horse battle?
Oh, no. I got to... where am I? I got to the point where you come back out of the underground and the military's taken over the city.
Okay.
That's where I am now. So chapter 11 or 12.
Yeah, you made it pretty far. That's crazy. He has a question here, too. Has there been any games added to backwards compatibility that either of you have played a lot, or you just not have enough time for old games?
I replayed Fable 3 recently, although unfortunately they just made it Xbox One X enhanced, so I played it before they did that, and there were all these weird errors in it that I bet don't happen now. I played both. I played all the Fables backwards compatible over the course of the Xbox One's existence. Actually, I like those games.
You use backwards compatibility a lot.
I do. Red Dead Redemption 1.
Yeah,
I played
it looked
through that
amazing.
Again. Yeah.
I used it to check it out, and I have not done it since. And a big reason why is because when I come over here, Matt a lot of times has something on his X playing that's an old game, and I stand there and I'm like gobsmacked. I'm like, holy crap, man!
They do a good job. Ninja Gaiden
they do.
2 looks really good.
Yeah, it does. I was shocked, man. I was like, damn, it looks like a different game.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. It's impressive what they're doing with it. But yeah, to your point, yeah, I just don't have time to go back and play old games, unfortunately. I wish I did, but
I've made some time for them on the X. It's like you said, the up-res and the
it's shocking.
As long as they're specifically enhanced, as long as there's an update for them, they look pretty good. And
Yeah.
I did load up Fable 3 after they, my save after they updated it, and yeah, it's super sharp. It looks way better. Yeah, I wish I'd waited an extra 3 weeks to do that.
I mean, I remember when we were sitting there watching it, like, we're like, what kind of update could be coming
Yeah,
for this?
I didn't see that
It just
coming.
happened on the fly. Let's see. J. Reed Vic 7, during a rapid-fire Q&A with Game Informer, Ed Boon revealed that Neo for The Matrix was almost in Injustice 2, but the deal fell through. Will we ever see Matrix in games again before there's inevitably rebooted films?
I would be very surprised if we saw more Matrix games.
Yeah.
The time has passed.
I mean, even when the time hadn't passed, the games were so bad.
Yeah. I mean, there's a
They
good
tried.
There's a good Matrix game.
Yo, you could make
somewhere.
a great Matrix
Yeah,
game. I mean,
you could definitely.
I would
make a good
argue
one.
Conker's Bad Fur Day was a better Matrix
That's
than the
true.
Matrix video games.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like 90% sure that the reason that would have fallen through is the likeness rights for Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Which is probably also why we're not getting John Wick in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Well, apparently we are getting Joker, Terminator, and Spawn of all. I mean, McFarlane is trying to make Spawn a thing again because they're making a new movie.
Mm-hmm.
All three of those seem to be movie tie-ins. Actually, the new Joker, the
all
new Terminator,
money.
it's all that. But I mean, I would definitely like to play a decent Matrix game, but like it's been too long. That movie's 20 years old this month, or last
crazy.
month. You know, it's over.
It's really mind
Happened.
blowing. Oh yeah, it's way too late. I don't even know if they'll reboot for movies. To be honest, with
There's
you.
been talk of like a Morpheus prequel, about like Morpheus's youth or something. I don't know if that would ever happen. The Wachowskis certainly wouldn't make it because they're semi-retired or maybe fully retired. Like they,
or fully moved on.
yeah, well, also that, yeah, but like.
Yeah.
They shut their production company down and basically walked away from movies. So,
Wow.
I mean, if there's anything that could maybe tempt the Wachowski sisters back in, would be maybe to retake control of the Matrix. But I also feel like they probably feel like they've told that story and they don't need to go back to it.
They've also made a ton of money.
They have, but then it's not like their last few movies made a ton of money either. So I don't know. Hopefully they were smart with money. In the meantime, because nobody got rich off Jupiter Ascending and Cloud Atlas. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, you know what I would say is Jupiter Ascending wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I think Jupiter Ascending is pretty bad.
It's pretty bad,
but it's not.
I
as bad.
honestly thought it was going to be like one of the worst movies ever made.
No, it's not as bad as its reputation.
Yeah.
But Eddie Redmayne's performance is one of the worst things
It is
I've ever
hilariously
seen.
bad. It really is.
On the flip side, I think Speed Racer is underrated.
I'd agree with that too. Yep. I was a big Speed Racer fan as a kid. I actually was.
I think that is as good as a Speed Racer movie was ever going to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like no question.
Yeah.
And visually,
it's insane that they ever made it.
Yeah.
It's real. I mean, it was like a niche cartoon when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. It's nuts that they made that thing. Let's see, Vincent. Here's some updates or some clarifications. 2 notes on the return stuff. GameStop is only allowing returns for specific games. I did not see that. It wasn't in the story that I read. Starting with Days Gone, as I mentioned. And MK11, it's not part of it, but we knew that as well. And PSN only allows returns if you haven't started downloading the game yet. So you can't actually sample the game and then return it on PSN.
So that's mostly there in case you made a mistake, I guess.
Yeah. That's really all it's there for, is if you downloaded accidentally the wrong thing. Or you just have buyer's remorse, like immediate buyer's remorse. 2 fouls for you. Square Enix announced today that it's taking Sony's usual time slot for E3. Do you think this means that they've got some big games such as Avengers and Final Fantasy VII Remake to show, or do you think that it will bomb like they're showing at E3 last year? I do not think that that's why they took the slot. That they have.
I
like,
think they just took it because it's a more visible
there.
slot.
Yeah,
it's, a
it's like
slot.
the prime slot.
Yeah.
It's like there's a reason Sony had it all this time. People are used to tuning in at that day and time during E3. I mean, I'm surprised there wasn't like a fight over that time slot from all the publishers. To your point about last year, remember Square Enix tried to do the whole Nintendo Direct thing last year, and it was a disaster.
I don't know if I've ever been so happy we did not go live for something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And, I think they'll probably do that again.
Yeah, I mean, it seems likely.
I don't think they're going to do like a live press conference.
No. And as far as having big stuff, I mean, it feels like it's past time to show that Avengers game, but who knows? It feels like now, once Endgame's out, then you can show this game that probably ties in somehow with whatever happens in those movies. So maybe we will get to see it. I mean, at least just the fact that they showed that Iron Man VR game was just like, wow, movement. Hey, look, there's life in him still. Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think that game's years out.
Yeah.
Years and years out.
They have been working on it for a long time.
Yeah, but I think they went more or less back to the drawing board at some point again, and now once Nomura finished Kingdom Hearts 3, I think they took 2 steps back again, and I'll tell you this much: you're going to need to buy a PS5 for it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be on modern systems.
What actually flows perfectly into our next question from Majora Tom 91. You think the reason why Sony is being quiet this year is a lot of Sony's lineup is for PS5, and they're spending a lot of time on how to message, trying to sell that to the public.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of been my theory for most of the time. Is like, these are their last 4 big releases on the PS4, and anything going forward, they are going to have to talk about the PS5, and they're not ready to do that yet.
Yeah.
You got Days Gone, you got Ghost of Tsushima, you have Death Stranding, and you have Last of Us 2. Those are your swan song first party titles for PS4 and Dreams, which everyone keeps forgetting about, but
including us.
Yeah, but it is available for early access right now.
It is $35, I think.
Yeah, and so yeah, I think it probably is that. I think I said that back when they announced it. It's like anything else they can say about any of that stuff, which is going to require them to talk about PS5, and they are not willing to do that until later this year or next year. But then Mark Cerny talked about it, so now I don't know. It's a mystery.
Commander Fett03, thank you for the bits. Joaquin Dragoon, thank you for the bits. Very generous, guys. Very awesome. Snub Barracuda, thank you for subscribing via Twitch Prime. J. Reed Vic 7, thank you for subscribing via Twitch Prime. If I missed anybody, I apologize. Vincent says Persona 5 RNS are being announced this week. So I guess we'll see that soon. See if we have any more questions. I think that's it. Joaquin Dragon, what do you think of Dragon's Dogma? Should I try it on Switch?
Dragon's Dogma is great.
I think if you have a PS4, you should try it on PS4.
Yeah, although there's some cool stuff on the Switch version, in terms of like costumes and things you can do with the pawns. But no, Dragon's Dogma is fantastic, and you should play it on whatever you can play it on. Obviously, it's going to run a little better on the other platforms.
A lot better. It also looks bad on Switch.
Yeah. It was never much of a
Mortal
looker.
Kombat looks pretty bad on Switch too.
Yeah, it was never. I mean, Dragon's Dogma was never much of a looker to begin with.
It wasn't.
So yeah, the downgrade on that is disappointing.
Mortal Kombat looks like a mobile game on Switch.
Well, it plays like one, so here we go.
Well, the monetization's like a mobile game. That's for sure.
So yeah, I would say however you want to play Dragon's Dogma, play it, because it's very good.
Oh, there was another question I saw about...
Wolves hunt in packs, by the way, just so you know.
They do. I saw someone ask a question about GameStop and Game Informer, but I want to make sure I give them credit for their question. I can't find it now. Someone asked a question. It was, if GameStop goes out of business, what happens to Game Informer? So you start answering that while I look for the person so we can give them credit.
Yeah, I definitely saw that. I would guess Game Informer goes away unless somebody swoops in and buys it. But I can't imagine who would want to do that. Killzone 310 said that.
I think it dies.
Yeah. I guess someone could buy it, but I don't know who would want to do that.
And didn't, if I remember correctly, I don't think it was that long ago, Game Informer in other countries, weren't they shut down everything but U.S.?
I don't know.
I thought it was. I think there's already been kind of a step towards that. But yeah, if you're wondering why there's one video game magazine left still standing after all this time, that's why. It gets subsidized by GameStop. And in all honesty, GameStop should have probably stopped that deal a long frickin' time ago. Maybe it thinks that somehow it's making it money. Really all it's doing is just keeping Game Informer afloat.
Yeah, well, I'm okay with that because I know several people who work at Game Informer.
Well, yeah, of course. But,
I mean, from a business standpoint, I don't really know what they're after with it, but
Yeah.
it's just sort of inertia at this point, I guess.
But yeah, I would say if GameStop goes away, which I don't think is going to happen for years still, I think probably the earliest, like 3 years from now.
Yeah.
And then when that happens, I think Game Informer will go away.
Yeah, unless,
It'll live on probably as a website, like it'll stay online, but it will stop producing the Dead Tree Media version.
Yeah, or I mean, I don't know what happens with that. I mean, who knows? It'll be a long, slow collapse over the
Slow
course of
motion
several
train
years.
crash, yeah, train wreck. All right, that's it for GameFace 165. I had fun today. I hope you guys did too. Hope you're having a great early part of your week and you're having a great Tuesday night with us. If you're watching us on YouTube, please do us a favor and please subscribe via Twitch Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, just connect your accounts. Everything's down below. It takes a minute the first time, and after you do it the first time, it literally takes 5 seconds. You give us $2.50, and it costs you nothing. I can't understand why you wouldn't do it if you're enjoying the show or you're enjoying Pachter Factor. So please do it. We'd really appreciate it. And you're getting the show for free, so why not? So with that, GameFace is up and out.